All right. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you for that feedback, Alan. Thank you for standing for our great flag. Welcome to this June 2nd Carver County Board of Commissioners meeting. Let's see, this is time for public comments. I don't see anybody from the general public in here today. So we'll move on to item 1.3, agenda review and adoption.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
A motion by Lynch and a second by Fahey to approve the agenda. Are there any discussions on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Uterman moves approval of the May 19th, 2026 minutes, and I think I have a second from Commissioner Anderson.
You do indeed.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? The names all spelled correctly?
As far as we can tell.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Community announcements. Commissioner Fahey.
Mr. Chair, it's town ball season has started, so if you have the opportunity to go and visit your local town ball team, please get out and do so. Just a lot of games, a lot of night games, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon or an evening to get a burger and a beer or a beverage and watch a little town ball. And then congratulations to all the high school seniors and the college seniors for their successful runs and on to their other careers. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Uterman?
Mr. Chair, it's fun. I see Sam in the audience too. Fun to be out at Lake Waconia on Saturday. Unofficially, about 500 people showed up to take the shuttle ride over the island. We knew that there was going to be operational challenges that we'll work our way through. But as I talked to some of the folks, I was later in the day. We had softball in the morning, but I got out there. When people found out, I think it's the first time we've officially ran a shuttle back and forth as a county. I know other people have been out there. Most people said they'd never had the opportunity to be there. Some of the people said they didn't even know we owned an island. Most people were appreciative of it. And I think that the team is already planning second, third, and fourth to look in the future and what that looks like. Everybody was appreciative of the fact that most of it's liability driven. How do you get people from one place to the other? How do you get them on a pontoon, et cetera? Some people suggested, wouldn't it be great if people on the lake brought their pontoons and lent them? I'm sure it's all going to be a legality thing. Also, I know that there's other posts that get a lot of looks. I think this is the post that's gotten the most views on social media when it comes to the parks. Over 100,000 people saw that. So 125 reposts or whatever it was. And so I keep an eye on that because, you know, when the individual passed away underneath the 41 bridge, that also got 100,000 plus views, but that wasn't necessarily good news. It's hard to get posts that have really good views because the public's responding. Also had conversations with some folks from outside of Carver County. We've heard about Carver County. We wanted to get, this was the excuse. We had an opportunity to do so. And a couple, they came in and I think I got there at 11:30. They got their number. They went into town. They shopped, they spent money, they came back, they waited an hour, you know, they got their lunch here, so they got to enjoy the area. And so I know you guys are on it. Congratulations for getting it off the ground. We know we have challenges that we have to address, but it was great. I also heard on the softball field the next day, I heard your kid went to an island. And so that opened up some conversations. I will echo what Commissioner Fahey said about graduates. I really didn't realize that fifth graders graduate too, but they do, and mine did. I don't remember that being part of the story, so I'll add that to the high schoolers and the college folks and as they're going. And then I look at it in a weird way. Talent, I see it as a talent pipeline. I see these are the kids that we want to be able to attract and keep here in Carver County. Some of them may even work for the county. And then kudos to the school district. I know they've navigated where their graduation is going to be held. I went over there on graduation day to see the setup, and thank God it was nice for weather-wise. But nice facility. Everybody that came out of that said it was a little bit hot, but they appreciated the facility and a hard path to get there. A week or two ago, I had a chance to be in City of Victoria. They do a seniors invite for a number of presentations they do. Our environmental center was there, and it was right on the heels of Commissioner Workman saying that you got your food waste container. So they were actually offering no-cost food waste containers. Almost everybody there got them. There was a gal that pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I heard about this communities of belonging thing. I'm new to the community." So a lot of conversations, a couple of city council members from Victoria. So they did a nice job. The key interests with the environmental center were twofold. One was batteries. They showed some pictures of batteries that click together and then they ignite fire. So it was a good education. And then a lot of questions about food waste because I think that goes into law soon. I wanted to highlight the Government Center open house that's on June 3rd. I think that's tomorrow in Township Hall to talk about the 600 building. I think for me, when I heard our consultant a number of years ago say to build new was about, to rip out the insides of that building and put in new HVAC and address some of the challenges that we're aware of would be about 85% of the cost of building new. And so that's my big key soundbite when I'm talking about people, because it's not a small building. Also, that building was built in 1965, and $80 million is a lot of money, but I think the county has done a nice job of planning for it so that the taxpayers isn't going to feel the burden of 5 years consecutive double-digit tax increases. And so I just wanted to throw that along. And then finally, I think our partners at A Better Society hosted their last Fix It clinic this past weekend. I heard it was another success. Of course, getting things out of the stream of disposal, but also to create connections that you can actually fix some of this stuff and reuse it. So I think that was been a hit. It's been going on for many years. I'm glad that our environmental center partners with them. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson.
All right. I did want to also congratulate the graduates from District 112. It was a beautiful night for an outdoor graduation, and I also wanted to acknowledge the fact that our very own Minnesota Mosquito Control District did do a bit of spraying on those fields in order to have it to be a more bug-free, safe graduation, and just one of the many things, one of the many services that our county services provide. So congratulations to them. I also wanted to acknowledge a press release from the Sheriff's Department on the solicitation of a minor. There was a undercover operation targeting an online profile for solicitation of a minor. And this is the kind of work that is so important that our Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement agencies do as a county, because these minors, it's just easy for them to fall into this trap, and parents aren't even aware. So that leads me into, I walk the trafficking 5K every single year, and that builds awareness to this type of criminal activity. So I just wanted to bring that up, that's happening June 13th at Purgatory Park in Eden Prairie. You can walk it, you can virtually walk it, or you can just donate. And those funds go to various organizations that help stop human trafficking, which is a huge issue here in Minnesota. So I wanted to bring that up. And then it is kind of summer season. The Chan Market Square is having a summer festival tonight. So get yourself out there for that. And it's also farmer market season. So in addition to town ball season, it's farmer market season. So lots of opportunities for farmers markets here in Eastern Carver County. It's the city of Carver has their farmers markets on Tuesdays from 3 to 6 at Carver Station. Chanhassen has theirs Saturday morning from 9 to 1 over at City Center Park. And Chaska has theirs on Thursday evenings from 4 to 7 in the parking lot by Middle Spring Church. And also Victoria has theirs on Thursdays 5 to 8 in Omni Brewing. And then there's other various farmers markets, which you can find on the Carver County website. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lynch.
I did attend a couple Memorial Day services to honor our fallen dead who didn't make it back. And it really is to go, town ball season in Carver County is really, really special because we have some very, very good teams here. all the way across the county. There's, they have placed at the state at various levels. I don't want to go out, but I know Waconia was a champ. Watertown's a runner-up. Wasn't Chanhassen? Didn't they win it a couple years back?
4 times in a row.
It's absolutely wonderful. You don't have to go to Minneapolis to see good baseball. So stay at home and watch some really good baseball. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Chanhassen Redbirds are not in operation this year. We do not have a team. I'm blaming nil on that, cash and money and all sorts of other underhanded stuff probably, but where do the college kids flow from town team to town team? And Chanhassen could not field a team this year. So better news than that. Commissioner Uterman mentioned the compost law. I think that is a mandatory law in 29 or 30, somewhere down there. It's not immediate. I am giving it a whirl at my home. As always, it's hard to get everybody in the home on the same page with whatever you think is doing the right thing. I don't often send the affable Mrs. Workman a note like that over the airwaves and computer screens, but
I thought you
she
were
needs
talking
to
about
do a
Jenny.
better job. So, but we're working on that. Again, affable, very affable. The grad ceremonies, isn't that one of the most political issues school district might have? Where is it going to be? They were blessed with great weather, with having it outside, both high schools on this end. I do represent, as I drive through neighborhoods, I represent so many different students from different schools, from Eden Prairie to, of course, half of Chanhassen is Minnetonka. Victoria, my section of Victoria is really Minnetonka High School. Breck, De La Salle, you name it. And so to everybody, congratulations. And finally, bus drivers are ready to have summer break and have some fun. They work hard. Don't forget them. Many of them do work through the summer. There's plenty of work to be had, but they have the same anticipation as the hardworking students we represent. So that's all I got. All right, consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Anderson and a second by Fahey to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Uterman.
I do have one. I think I brought it up before. Just thought it was worth discussion. Sam, I know you're in the room too. Baylor Park on 2.8. I know we've been spending a lot of time on it. I know there's a lot of arms and legs. I wonder if it's not prudent for the taxpayers if we just push pause on that until we have the larger conversation about Three Rivers that I know is forthcoming. I wouldn't want to proceed with doing something like that of significance until we knew what the larger landscape looks like, and I don't think a couple month delay is going to cost us anything. So I just ask that we maybe consider pulling that one and pushing pause on it for a bit.
I know that we have a representative
Chair Workman,
consultant in the room.
is, there's no cost to adopting the plan, correct?
I don't think so.
Okay, I was just curious about the taxpayer piece. I just wanted to clarify.
I could jump up, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board members. Good question, Commissioner Anderson. There is no cost that'd be incurred from this point to completing the adoption process of the plan. Of course, there was cost to get us to this point,
It sure was.
but moving forward here with what's in front of us in terms of formal adoption, there's no additional cost in that regard. So.
And one more question then, if we were to revise the plan, would there be additional costs?
Great question as well. There would be cost, right? Because what we go back to is a public engagement process, which if I were to provide the breakdown of the fees, a lot of the costs in consulting time, of course, comes in supporting our public engagement. So we'd be kind of going back to that step, should there be an interest to, I'll say, revise the plan in its current state. So.
Well, I just, since I wasn't here when you presented this, I was able to participate or observe, not participate, but observe in some of that public participation process and kind of looking through the whole plan and great job, great plan. It's going to take years to implement, but yeah, happy to support that on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, if I could, we actually toured Baylor Park, the Park Commission toured Baylor Park, and it took us a long time to get here, expense to get here. At this point, I don't wish to posit. The biggest complaint that most people have is that government moves too slow, and especially if we pause it the whole time, we're going to never get done. So no, I wish to keep this on the consent agenda and just move forward.
Okay, unless Commissioner Uterman is going to turn that into a motion with a second. Commissioner Uterman?
Nope, just good discussion.
All right, then we have an intact consent agenda. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Regular session, item 3.1, Government Center Project.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I am pleased to be in front of you today to talk about our Government Center project, and in particular, to talk about the architect and engineering professional services. Want to start off quick with the brief project history. You've heard me up here many times over the last probably 10 plus years talking about our master space plan, which is our planning for county office spaces across Carver County. And pre-COVID, we had a plan in place, and that plan included moving Health and Human Services off of this campus onto a different site, and then coming back later and remodeling this site to meet our needs of the other operations. Then COVID hit, and we pumped the brakes on our project. And I think it was good that we did so because we realized that we work differently now. We have a lot of opportunities with a hybrid work environment. And with that, we no longer needed to move Health and Human Services off of this campus. We're able to accommodate them on the site here with a hybrid work environment. So after COVID, we went ahead and revised our master space plan and presented that plan with 3 phases. Phase 1 is the Government Center project, which I'm talking about today. And then we also have other phases within the master space plan, including First Street Center and Public Works. In October of 2024, the county board passed a motion to move forward with the Phase 1 project, including the schedule, next steps, establishment of 2 committees, an executive committee and a planning committee, approve the overall project budget and funding plan of $82 million, and appointing Commissioner Fahey to serve on the executive committee. Then in November 2025, we came back to the county board with the pre-design work. In the pre-design work, with that, we took the master space plan, refined the program further, did a fit test to make sure that all the services were going to be able to be accommodated on our site when you consider the building size and parking and everything like that, and then confirmed the project budget. So again, that was presented to the board last November, and now I am here to talk about our next steps in the project. Before I get into that, though, just a brief high-level schedule for our project. Pretty much starting now and lasting about a year will be our design and phasing phase of the project. Then about a year from now or so, we'll be looking at starting demo, so that'd be summer of 2027, and then roll from there into construction, which will probably take us about a year and a half to complete. So hopefully in the spring of 2029, we're holding a ribbon cutting ceremony. A lot of work to happen between now and then. Right now is kind of an exciting point within the project where we are shifting from planning to more implementation of the project. And with that, we need to make sure we have the right team in place to help us get this project constructed. So with that, we're going to need a construction manager. So as Commissioner Workman pointed out at the last meeting, that was on the consent agenda to issue the RFQ for construction manager. That is out. I've heard from a few construction managers already, I think 4. that are interested in the project and have some questions. So I'm anticipating that we'll get a good response on that. We'll have a committee review that and then bring a recommendation back to the county board to award that construction manager. Today, I'm before you to request building the team with our architect and engineer and professional services. That's a key position or key players on the team as we go to construct this facility. In addition, we've started to work to gather some of our base data, including things like site survey and get an agreement to do soil borings, and again, just gather that base information that we're going to need for the project. As Commissioner Uterman mentioned, tomorrow we do have an open house for staff where they can learn more about the project, including the site plan, the schedule. We have an interactive area where they can provide feedback on the project to some of the key players here. So looking forward to that, hearing some good response. I think we'll have good attendance from staff at that meeting or at that open house. And then from there, really our next phase is going to be to develop our demolition drawings and then a phasing analysis as far as how the project's going to move forward. So the scope of what we're looking for architect and engineering services, this includes an engagement process with the committee, with staff. We'll also be holding a open house for the public, but especially the neighbors to learn more about the project along the way here. So again, we want to have that engagement process. We need to have the demolition drawings in place, the phasing analysis. Probably the number one question I get from staff is, where am I going to be during construction? Like, how's this going to work? And that's really what we're going to flush out between the demolition drawing and the phasing analysis, is what services do we need to continue? What square footage are they going to require? And where might people go during this construction? So we don't have the answer to that, but we do have a plan to develop an answer for that. From there, we'll be going into the schematic design, kind of that higher level design, develop that further, and then get that down to the construction drawings, which will then be bid out. The bidding and construction administration will largely be driven by the construction manager, but the architect and engineers will play a critical role in that as well, and then close out the project. In addition, we are looking to the architect to assist us with furniture design. I think this is especially critical with the hybrid work environment. It's not the typical pick a cube and repeat it everywhere type of thing. We're going to have a little bit more flexible spaces to meet our hybrid work environment. So I think it'd be critical to have them engaged in that furniture design process, including developing the specs and bidding. So with that, staff is recommending that we move forward with Leo A. Daly as the architect. Going back when we originally started the master space planning process, we did go through a competitive process, issued an RFP, interviewed potential architects, and awarded it to Leo A. Daly. We felt like they were the best fit for our project. Our recommendation is to stay with them because I think it'd be a better flow from the planning to now going into the design work. They really understand our organization, working with us for almost 10 years here now. They understand the program probably better than anyone and have built solid relationships with key leaders and key staff from across the organization. I think there's a lot of benefit in continuing to work with them in the next phase here. So with that, staff obtained a proposal from Leo A. Daly with the scope of work that I presented on the previous slide. And they put forward a proposal for Carver County. Just a little breakdown here. So again, we have an overall project budget of $82 million. About $65 million of that is estimated to be the construction cost, and about $5 million of that is estimated to be the furniture budget on the project. The fee that Leo A. Daly is proposing is 8% for architect and engineering services of the estimated construction cost. So that's about 5.2 million. The fee they're proposing for furniture design is 10% of the furniture budget, which is about $500,000. We will true up these costs once we get to schematic design phase. So right now, they are pretty preliminary estimates. The overall $82 million, we're holding tight on that. We're holding the line on the $82 million. But what of that might be furniture versus construction could change slightly. So the percentages will stay the same, the 8% and the 10%, but the overall cost might shift slightly from one bucket to another. Staff did an analysis of their proposal, and as part of that, reached out to several other government agencies to find out what some similar types of projects have come in as far as architect and engineering. So I'll reach out again to 7. Actually, I think I got 9 now. I got 2 more after I worked on this, but had a number of, I think it was like Wright County, Washington County, some Hennepin, Scott County's project, reach out to Chanhassen, so reach out to a broad array of projects that were completed, and they range anywhere from about 4.5% to 10%. There's a lot of variables that go in there. Like I think Wright County was on the low end, but they pretty much, put a building in the middle of the cornfield, which is pretty easy when it comes to architect and engineering compared to what we have going on here. So there's a lot of variations when it comes to the services that are provided and the associated fees. And overall, looking at other projects in our project comparatively, we're a pretty complex project when you look at it. We are going to have extensive phasing as far as, moving people around and, how's this going to work, and demolition and remodel. There's a lot going on here. In addition, we have things like our data center is going to go away as part of the demolition. Like where do we relocate that and how do we stand that up to make sure that there's no interruption along the way? We have utilities coming in on that end of the building that serve other areas of the campus. During construction, how are we going to make that work? Our HVAC systems are interconnected across buildings. So when we demo, in between, how are we going to make this fit? And then once we get a new building in place, how's our HVAC systems going to all tie together? So again, it's a pretty complex project. In addition, we surrounded on 3 sides, well, 2 primarily. There's a little creek over there, so I call it 3 sides, by water, plus a neighborhood across the street. We have demolition and renovation. And, we all know that there's probably hidden stuff on the site with the clay hole behind us, a lot of digging. There's been some stuff dumped here over the years. So we're just anticipating, a complex site when it comes for architect and engineering. So with that, Mr. Chair, staff's bringing forward a motion to enter into contract with Leo A. Daly for architect and engineering professional services for the government center project pending finalization of the contract review process. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Anderson.
I do have a couple. I mean, it does make good sense to kind of stick with the same architect rather than trying to get someone else up to speed, and they've done the preliminary work. I actually have questions that are less to do with this recommendation.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have a lot of moving parts. Every building project I have been in has been clear the site, build the building. So this moving people and everything off is complicated. There's got to be a lot of communication in that. Is that part of this, or is that something that our communication team has to pick up? Because communicating to our employees and getting feedback from them is, or not feedback, but it is going to be crucial. to this. When there's lack of communication, people think the worst. So is that part of this proposal?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, I think there'll be two fronts there. One will be the front for the architect, which is helping to lead the open house tomorrow.
Yep.
In addition, looking at each phase of the project, they do have a staff engagement portion of that to get feedback and engage, not only key staff through the committees that have been established, but, along the way here, we've interviewed, staff to find out, what the need is for the program, and that will continue as we roll through these additional phases. So that'll be on the architect front. In addition, I anticipate, once this project gets rolling, there might be a frequent newsletter going out to employees as far as updates and pictures, especially once people move off-site. And, a internal connection page that will have up-to-date information where people can stay engaged in the process. So that'll be more on county staff to pull that information together. In addition, we've talked about maybe trying to do some fun events like sign a beam, or I don't know. We haven't fleshed those out, but
Oh, that'd
it's
be
definitely
fun.
part of like an engagement process with staff.
Yeah. I mean, it is going to be a bit of a dance with private spaces versus public spaces. I mean, we have attorneys who need to keep public, or we're not dealing with you. But we have social workers, sorry, Mark. But we have social workers and we have a lot of HR and we have a lot of have people who need to have private conversations. So, we need to make sure that we keep engaged with staff on how many of those spaces need to be private versus public. And I love the idea of kind of the flexible spaces. You see that more and more, and Chan's area have that. I will also comment, and I've been involved in a lot of building projects. It seems like these fees are high, but a good construction manager will save you was worth their weight in gold, and they will save you a lot of money. So for the public, this seems like 10% is a lot, but it saves over time. So, but yeah, this is going to be a lot of moving parts, and communication is going to be key, and good relationships with both our architects and our construction managers is key, which is why I'm supporting staying with Leo Daily, since we already have a good working relationship. We don't have to start over with that. It makes good sense.
Commissioner Uterman.
I think Leo Daly's been part of this journey for 10 plus years. A lot of starts and stops, and so it's getting close. This is where they make their money, right? 5.4, 5.6, $5.9 million, not a lot, not a little bit of money. And I appreciate the comment. You're right. If we get good management, there's a lot that could happen. So those are the flavor of my questions. Do we know how much of that 5.5 proposed $1 million is non-labor, or is it all people capacity? Like, is it supplies? Is it third-party consultants? Is it mostly just Leo staff?
I don't have, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, I don't have the particular breakdown of that. They are bringing in some consultants for like civil engineering, and I believe landscape design.
Okay.
But otherwise, everything else is in-house, including like mechanical
Yep.
and the rest of the services.
So mostly labor. So I just took the 5.4 million, and the Google machine said somebody in that role makes between $80 and $300 an hour. Big range, just like lawyers. But at $80 an hour, that's 67,500 hours of labor. That's 32 and a half full-time equivalents. I don't think we're going to have 32 and a half per people working on that project full-time for a year. If we took it at $300 an hour, it's 18,000 hours. It's 8.65 people, full-time equivalent. And I know that there's benefits because they have to cover their own benefits and all that other stuff. I wonder if it makes sense for us, instead of a percentage, because if that building cost escalates like in other buildings have, if we negotiated a dollar amount from start to finish. And then my other question is what guarantees come with this fee? I have friends that are in the industry. Everybody points the finger at, hey, you didn't wire that right, that thing didn't get hooked up right, and then we've got the contingency fees that we tap into. Can you talk to us through what guarantees we get if we're spending $4.4 million, $5.4 million, and they hand over the building and something doesn't work.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, a few comments on that. So one is we have a very extensive agreement that we're working on that hammers out a lot of those details as far as, who is responsible for what. As part of that, there's typically a building warranty. I think it's about a year, if I remember right, on the language. That's typically for more the trades that are building things, and if things go wrong, they would be responsible for making that repair. But as part of this process, we're requiring they have insurance. So if they design something and it falls over, of course they would be on the hook if they did and design inappropriately, and we have to involve the county attorney's office and potentially their insurance.
Yeah.
At that point.
I just think it's prudent because I've seen this. I'm not close enough to it to understand what the specific language is. But if that guy designed it and that guy built it wrong and I'm standing in the middle, if Leo Daly sit in the middle, then we spend a lot of time and energy saying, no, it was the design, no, it was the build, no, it was the whatever. And so if we're tight on the language, I'd also say that given the dollars that are here, with a swipe of a pen, we can, as a board, say, you know what, it's an arbitrary number, but how about we make that contract 5 million flat, not to exceed 5 million. We would save 400,000. They're not walking away from that contract. And in a swipe of a pen, we save 0.5% in 1 year worth of levy. And so I think about this and say, I know that we're not here to negotiate because they're not here. That's your job. But I would ask the board to consider a max not to exceed 5 million for their services related to that building. And I think that everybody wins in that scenario. And I think that we should do more of this, what I'm suggesting. So those are my thoughts and the reasons why. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
In being involved in several building projects, from churches to schools to domes, usually you're right, there's a year. There also is a number of inspections that have to happen throughout the process. And so it's very unusual that we don't have, that they just turn over the building if something doesn't happen. And again, my son is in this field, so I hear about this all the time. And I also, it's an interesting proposal to just kind of think about renegotiating this contract. I think as a business owner and as a person in the professional services world, these are businesses that need to make money so that we can put people food on the table for people. And if we're going to be a supporting business, then we need to support the businesses who work for us as well. Usually, these types of businesses end up giving more than they get. And I think we need to be respectful of the price that they gave us. They understand that they're working with government. We have a long-term contract with them. And I think it's while I understand the cost savings, the thought of cost savings, I think we need to be respectful and honor the price as given that it's their best offer that they can give us. And I trust Nick, I trust you and Dave to be prudent with taxpayer dollars. I've seen that in my year and a half on this board, and I trust that you'll continue to do that. So I move to enter into contract with Leo A. Daly for architecture and engineering professional services for the Government Center project pending finalization of the contract review process.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I got a motion by Anderson and a second by Fahey on this item. Further discussion, interesting discussion, but to the taxpayer, here we go, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a line item. We have an idea about what some of this is going to cost us in greater detail. We are not spending any money today, correct? I don't see anything in the budget line, but we're budgeting these exact amounts.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this will be a contract with them. Of course, they will charge us as they incur fees, but they will be probably in, June-ish, starting to, do work on this, which will, again, charge against, fees under this contract.
And to maybe Mr. Hemsey or Frischman, we have this budgeted and in a fund.
So right now, within the Fund 30, I believe it was last budget cycle or the cycle before, we did set aside some funds for planning. I think there's about $1.5 million or so within there. And that will help us get through the phasing analysis and the demolition drawings, which will take us to the end of the year. And then, from there, we're going to have to continue discussions as far as, when are we going to issue the debt to, bring forward those funds to fund the project.
Mr. Chair, I would add, is there one cycle left, Dave, of 450,000 after this cycle? So there's 2 total cycles, so.
27, 28 left?
Yeah, so as you saw in the,
3.
in the requested budget phase, there was 450, and then there'd be another 450 to cover the debt service. I would also note, again, as a reminder, our what we could label the YES account, year-end savings account, had some very good news to the approximate amount of 10 million, I think it was. There's an option there as we move through this budget cycle of drawing that down and applying it to this project. So there's some big choices ahead, but Nick answered your question. Yes, there's money budgeted and allocated for this contract to get going.
Okay, and so to the taxpayer, the YES account is our year-end savings. That's what's left over from our budgeting year, right? But the $1.5 million is separate from the 450, which is being applied to debt
That's correct.
to hopefully make this project needed project as low impact to the property taxpayer as we can. Okay. Any other discussion on this? Commissioner Fahey.
Oh, good. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Definitely many steps in the process, and a lot of discussions will be had just serving on this committee and getting the feedback from Heather and the feedback from Dave and everything that Nick has done to date. We've had some very engaging meetings and really have enjoyed that process and have gotten a lot of feedback from Cindy and Isaac and Joe at Leo Daly, and they continue to bring what I think the value. And I too support the motion. And just as we look ahead, tomorrow, I think, is another critical day in this whole process, as we want staff there and we want staff to give us their feedback. The team is going to be there tomorrow. Heather, Dave, and I, and Nick are going to be there, and Leo Daily staff is going to be there. And just to absorb all of, hopefully, their feedback. It's a very complex project, but it's an exciting project for Carver County and ultimately for the staff. This is a building for the staff at Carver County. We have the support from the city of Chaska, and I personally want to continue to maintain this a very robust campus. And I think we have this relationship with Leo Daly. I get concerned with a comment like the swipe of the pen. I don't think that values the relationship very much when that type of comment comes out. And so, as I stated, I'm in support of this motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Lynch?
I'd have to say, we've been down this road for quite some time, and I was dragged kicking and screaming, as Commissioner Workman was too, to do this.
I can attest to that.
And, but Nick, have we taken pictures, and taking the tour was eye-opening. Have we taken pictures and videos? Because I wanted to, we talked about posting this, just why are we building this? And posting that on our website to show the dirt floors, and it's substandard to say, have we done that or we're in the process of doing that?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I've had a couple conversations with Ari on pulling something together. We've started to talk about what that might look like. So that is in process right now as part of our plan to get that out there.
Okay, and then Commissioner Workman, did Commissioner Anderson propose that we use this building project to move the attorneys off campus?
No, I was,
To Hamburg?
Say, how
Lovely
far are you-
place.
How far are you sending us?
There's some space in Lake Township, Mr. Chair.
It is, but here we are. It's getting realer, more real, and to the degree that we can keep the taxpayer in the loop. Yes, we've been making decisions for a long time and creeping up to it before COVID, and COVID sidelined it. Do we need a new building? We need a new building. Do we need more space? Is working at home going to complicate things? And so I think we've taken that all into account. We are moving ahead. And so, but it is an employee's building, of course, but it's for our constituents and people who come here for services, and they're not breathing bad air and, 1965 old jail. So there you go. Any other discussion?
no, just to comment, Chair Workman, if we take care of our people, then they can take care of our community. And that's what this is really all about. And our community comes here. So it just will allow us to take care of our community better.
Mr. Hemsey?
Mr. Chair, just a quick note on the open house tomorrow, that the intent of that is for staff and the building committee, and I know Commissioner Fahey plans on being there. Unfortunately, we did not get that on a public notice. So, but are there
So
others interested?
we're not invited? Is that
Well,
what you're saying?
we can
Is that
pull it
what I'm
off
hearing?
if we could sort of schedule, there's a 2-hour window, right?
Time is it?
1 to 3 tomorrow up at Township Hall. So does anybody else want to attend?
I kind of did, but I don't need to.
If you
2
wanted to
p.m.?
show up at 1 o'clock, Commissioner Ruderman, could you make it at 2?
Yep.
And Lisa, Commissioner
Yeah, one
Anderson would be
is
done.
better. Yep.
Anybody else?
I was going to be there from 1 to 3.
1 to 3, so that would still work. It would,
Okay.
if you want to do it that way.
Tim and I will be playing golf. For money.
Slicing into the wood.
Well, and I would note, we're going to have a whole laundry list of other opportunities for you and the public, of course, and likely additional opportunities, certainly for staff as this rolls out.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on this item. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-1. Item 3.2, Chaska Downtown Master Plan Task Force.
I will stay up here, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So the City of Chaska approached me recently about their downtown master space planning process. So right now, they are working to update their master plan, which will help define downtown's priorities and objectives. With that, they'll be creating a task force to provide feedback to staff and their consultant. Being that Carver County has a couple big projects going on, including the government center project that we just discussed and the library project, they asked if we wanted to have a representative on the downtown task force. The task force is going to meet 4 times, starting here in June and going until early next year. Meetings would be in the evening and last a couple hours. So with that, Mr. Chair, I am seeking support from the county board to appoint a member, either a staff member or an elected official to participate in their planning process.
Okay. I did have a chat with Commissioner Anderson about this. She's sort of been involved on the library side already. She said she really wants more meetings.
I do. I don't get enough, especially at
So
night
I
in
would
the
move
summer.
Commissioner Anderson for this position.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and second to approve Commissioner Anderson to be appointed to the Chaska Downtown Master Plan Task Force. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you. We got a high dose of Nick today. Went very well. All right, County Administrator report.
Oh, we got one. No,
Oh,
coming right.
I do. We got
Oh,
three.
no.
I crossed it out. Too late.
I mean nothing to you
I
anymore.
know you get so excited for
It's
that.
too late, Randy. We have Randy Lease here
Right.
to present this. Sorry about that.
That's all right. All right. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, for the public, my name is Randy Lease. I'm the fiber manager for what the county calls Carver Link for our fiber network here in Carver County. And I'm here to talk to you about our efforts right now. Or not.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Still using copper.
Yeah.
IT problem when the fiber guy's at the podium.
All right. Ready? There we go. All right. Today, we're here to talk about our efforts right now relating to fiber, which is to become the first county in the state of Minnesota with over 10,000 population and the first Twin Cities metro county to have 100% broadband coverage at a speed of a minimum of a 1 gig with symmetrical service. So in those efforts, we actually started the fiber optics in Carver County back in 2011. So we started out, I'm just giving you a little bit of a representation of about where we're at. We're trying to bring broadband coverage to 100% of the population here in the county. And in 2011, we had nothing. So you see a big gray. And now we're going to fast forward here 15 years. And you see the blue areas are areas that we now have 100% coverage in. And that leaves us the white areas here on the eastern side of the county. From that, in 2024, the board approved a project called the Connect Up Carver Expansion, or as we tagged it, the Kookie. And it did what we call city builds or build out infrastructure in Victoria and Chanhassen. And it actually finished up some of our rural areas. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a future slide. Once that's completed, it takes us to this level right here. And what this is this will be closer to a city of Chaska's, which we have left. And we've actually had about a year and a half worth of discussions with Comcast, who is the primary provider in Chaska. They've got some legacy copper infrastructure that they're looking to upgrade in 2028, 29. And based on that, we've been in discussions with them, non-contractual, but trying to extremely urge them to try to help us meet our 1 gig symmetrical speed goals. And we've been given assurances so far, again, non-contractual, that they're going to start building and increasing and improving their infrastructure and moving that from 2028, 29 to a 2026. So they're starting right now. So their efforts are a 2-year effort, and so we would hope to have that in place, which would actually help take care of the service that we're trying to make available in the county throughout Chaska, which would then leave us down and we'd be at about a 99.5% rate. We've got a couple of small pockets out there. Linden keeps getting in front of our way with a lot of road projects that we've got to stay out of the way from, so we can blame him. I'm happy to do that. And so that'll take us to that level. Now I want to go back to the slide that we had relating to the Connect Up Carver expansion, which is why we're here today. So what is the Connect Up Carver expansion? It's about a $14 million project that we partnered with one of our project partners, our primary one, Metronet, who is now T-Mobile. And what that did, there's about a $2.5 million county contribution to that $14 million project. And what that did is it built out the last 80 miles of rural infrastructure that we needed to actually get to the rest of the rural that we had left from a 2022 project that the board approved. It also then is building out what we call city builds, which builds out fiber infrastructure in the cities of Victoria and Chanhassen. And right now we're about 95% complete in Victoria. We're about 10% complete in Chanhassen. Now the contract for the Kookie has an expiration date or a deadline of June 30th of 2026, which is why we're here today. So when we put the contract together, we vastly underestimated the timeline it would take to complete based upon the changes in the fiber industry over the last 2 years. So There's been a lot of turmoil that's taken place, both politically, socially, economically, for what we've got. We've got labor shortages, material shortages. Some of the current administration's tariffs have impacted us dramatically relating to material shortages. Labor has been dramatically impacted from some of the social impacts that have taken place up here. A lot of the construction crews are not local to Minnesota that are brought in, so that has created some issues for some of us. And then we've had some, again, the current administration's come out here with, there's a $42 billion project that was implemented in the last 4 or 5 years called BEAD. And the state was on task and received an award from the Fed for about $700 million. And that was actually in the process of being implemented when the current administration came in. They pulled that back. That created instability in the market again. A lot of the contractors that were here for that left and said, we don't want to play in this market anymore, thus creating the labor shortage that we've had. And then again, I'll blame it on Linden. A lot of the Highway 5, a lot of 212, the Highway 7, the Highway 50, the Highway 11, the Highway 13. Pick any highway that we've got, and we've got road construction going on right now. A lot of that we have to stay away from. We've got a lot of fiber out there. We need to move when it's in place or when we're doing some of those projects. We're not laying down fiber so that we can pull it up a year from now and redo it again and pay those costs again. So we're having to stay out of the way until a number of those projects are done. So based upon that, we're here today based on those challenges and the June 30th, 2026 deadline for the contract. And we're requesting a motion to approve a contract amendment that will take us out 3 construction seasons, which will get us to completion of Victoria and Chanhassen, and then get us out of the way of the road projects that are going on for what some of the timelines for that, and puts us to a December 15th of 2029 deadline with that contract amendment. There's no additional cost to extend the contract, and this will just allow us to complete what we're trying to do in those 2 cities, and the rural completion is already completed in 2025. And this will actually help us in our efforts to try to get us to that 100% mark. Questions?
Commissioner Uterman?
Great work. Big, hairy, audacious goal, pecking away at it. I thought that our goal was to cover the rural community, which we had accomplished, and that market would deliver the cities, meaning there's competition so that we don't need to be involved. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Sure. We haven't seen that in the marketplace right now. So and a lot of that is based upon, and it's what the board and we have discussed about, and it's relating to the speed tiers that we have kind of established. So the feds and the state have different broadband speeds that they consider locations to be served or underserved. And right now, what we've looked at is the 1 gig, and it's one of the efforts that we've been trying to do here from the county, is to become a gig county. And so there's a lot of the speed tiers, similar to what we're seeing in Chaska. Some of the speed tiers that Comcast offers in Chaska are not to the level that we're looking for from the county's perspective in that 1 gig side. Same thing that we had in Victoria and Chanhassen.
So fair to say it's mostly speed. It's not, they have fiber, they just don't have the 1 gig.
It wouldn't be fiber necessarily. There is fiber that is going in, and so in the last several years, there's been an escalation of fiber construction that's taken place in Victoria, Chanhassen, Carver, Waconia, types of things like that. But there's a large quantity of legacy copper that's out there that is now working on getting replaced over time. A lot of those timeframes are in the 2029, 2030, 2031 that we've seen. Again, there's no commitment to us from any of those private providers out there, but we're trying to escalate that up and bring that to the citizens here sooner than later.
Then a question, you're probably the only person in the room that can answer this, but I know that there's also a push to go faster than one up, one down. I don't know if the next is 1.5, it's 2, because they keep changing it at the federal level and the state level, and it's good to define what it means. 1 up, 1 down is typically generally accepted, but others that have gotten here have not got the 1 gig. So we're not only getting there, one of the first, we're getting there at the fastest. Can you talk to what the next tier would be and what it would take for us as a county to get to whatever the next tier of speed is?
A lot of that will have to base with the technology that the service providers are putting in. And there's a number of providers that are offering some quality services throughout. It's a matter of the speeds that you're looking at. Typically, you're seeing a gig is going to be kind of the standard as we move forward. And that's a general relative term, what standard means. Everybody's got their version of what that might be. For what we're looking for and what we're seeing that has a value to what we've been looking for over time is the gig. The next phase with that would be 2 gig. A lot of the equipment that was out that it's being put in now or that has been put in the last several years by providers will handle that up to 2 gig capacity. The next big step though, after that would be people were bumping to 10. There's nothing in between typically. So it's a 10 gig piece. The nice thing is once you've got fiber in place, unlike the limitations that copper would have, that would be in there from the 1970s world, which was great for us during that time frame. But now that we're into this, the fiber can handle it. It's just a matter now we just have to upgrade the equipment.
Yep.
So that's what you're seeing with some of the copper providers right now. They cannot get the capacity that they would want to do with the copper. So it's got to be fiber. So they're spending the dollars to go out and put that infrastructure in the ground. So right now, and we've talked about it before here in this to the board, is that it's kind of like the gold rush. I mean, right now the first one there wins.
Yep.
So everybody's out there really pounding out. That's the reason there's the competition for labor and material.
Thanks.
So let's, Randy, bring this down to me. So in my yard currently in my neighborhood is apparently Comcast. So if I have CenturyLink, and I haven't measured my speed lately, I'm happy with it. That is exclusively a Comcast line. If CenturyLink wants to treat me better in there, they're gonna have to do the same thing, rip up my yard, right? So nobody's sharing, right?
Relatively, nobody's sharing, correct? Yes. I mean, they're from the large carrier side of things, the major players will share amongst themselves some. But when it comes out to the income generating side of things, then no, there's no sharing going on.
Okay. So I would have to go to Comcast if I
Absolutely.
desired that speed. Okay.
Yep.
Did I hear a motion for this yet? I don't think so.
I move to approve.
Okay, got a
Second.
motion by Uterman,
Second.
Second by Anderson.
and a second by Anderson. Very good. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, any further question or discussion?
Yes, of course.
Just wanted to say thank you, Randy. It's working phenomenal in the townships. I personally haven't got a call for about a year plus. And every time
Change that if you want.
yeah, but every time I do get those calls, Randy, I always forward them mainly directly to you, and you do take care of it. And I greatly appreciate that, and so do the citizens. So thank you.
And
Commissioner Lynch.
Randy, great explanation, great presentation. You're a very talented guy. You know, I can see why it's delayed. If you don't have the labor, you can't put the fiber in the ground. If you have the labor and you don't have the fiber, you can't put it in the ground. And we have construction projects that delay it. So, great job at this. I'm wholeheartedly supporting this.
And if you don't have Randy, you don't have anything.
Correct.
How about that? All right, I got a motion and a second and no more discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, we're at the end of the meeting, the regular meeting, County Administrator Report.
Highly anticipated.
Yes, sir, of course.
Didn't cross that out.
Just one item, noon courts meetings for Commissioner Fahey and Workman. We did, for the full board, meet with the, I think they call it the
Justice Advisory Committee.
which is a whole cross-section of the folks from the courts, including judges. Brought in Heather. We talked about the act, the African American Family Act, with the intent of educating, and I thought it went very well. And it's really, to me, a formal sort of kickoff of really preparing for the impacts of the act. And of course, we'll be talking to you further quite a bit about the budget and how things are rolling out, and it's going to be pretty fascinating to see how it evolves and shapes. And as is evident from a comment by one of the judges, basically predicting that the appeals court is going to be shaping this tremendously as we move forward. So stay tuned, but we'll carry over some of that conversation, I'm sure, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Fahey with the judges over the noon hour. That's all I have.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I got a motion by Lynch and a second by Anderson to adjourn this board meeting. Any discussion on that?
Only that we're going into a work session.
and that we are going into a work session to talk about health insurance and scale insurance pool feasibility update. Okay, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. We are adjourned. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Good idea.
One thing you sent me.
Whatever. You can move wherever you want.
Reno.
Oh,
We got a few hours.
all right. Here we go. We're in work session to talk about health insurance today. So take it away, Mia.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Mia Johnson, Senior Employee Relations Business Partner here at Carver County. I'm joined today by Colleen Schumann, our consultant with Gallagher, as well as Carrie Andrica, Employee Relations Director, and Kristen Hack, Senior Employee Relations Business Partner. We're here to talk to you this morning about the county's health insurance options, including a review of funding arrangements, discussion regarding the county's current fully insured arrangement and options reviewed for January 1, 2027, education on insurance pools or consortiums, an update related to the scale insurance pool that Carver County is currently exploring, as well as things to consider when evaluating funding arrangements. Colleen and I are both going to share time presenting to you this morning. Before I hand off to Colleen, just a little bit about Colleen. Colleen is an area vice president with Gallagher Benefits, Carver County's health insurance broker. Colleen began in the insurance industry in 2019. She joined Gallagher as a merger partner in 2022 when her employer was acquired by Gallagher. She briefly left Gallagher in 2024 to join the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium, which is a self-insured medical pool serving over 300 employers in the state of Minnesota, before she returned to Gallagher in January of 2026. Colleen was on the Carver County team with Gallagher before she left for her brief time at the consortium, and she's back on our team now, and we're super excited to have her back with us. She is going to get us started this morning with an update on Minnesota public sector market trends and information regarding different funding arrangements.
Welcome, Colleen.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. This is just the topic everyone wants to talk about on a morning, right? No. All right. Well, we'll make this as interesting as we can. So like Mia said, I'm with Gallagher, lead consultant for Carver County. And today we're going to talk a lot about what's going on in the market. And so starting out, as you all are likely aware and have heard in the news, the group insurance market, the individual insurance market, it's tumultuous, right? We're hearing high increases. We're hearing a lot of noise about PBMs, about pharmacy. We're hearing a lot of noise about transparency and legislation. And for 2026, so January 1st of 2026, the renewals that we saw across the board were at all-time highs. So shown here on this screen are the major four players in Minnesota. So Health Partners, Medica, United Healthcare, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. We saw renewals from all carriers range between high single digits to 39+% increases. In our office locally, we saw increases as high as 65%, and that was delivered renewal, not just a calculated renewal. In the insurance industry, market trend right now in the fully insured space, as well as if you even look at the self-insured managed space as well, medical insurance trend is between 9 and 12%. And what that means is if you have all of the same claims this year, so let's say 5 broken bones and 2 hospitalizations on a plan, what the actuaries are saying is that those same 7 claims will cost 9 to 12% more in 2027. So if everything remains unchanged, costs are increasing 9 to 12%, which is far exceeding general costs of goods and services in terms of inflation, which is not abnormal to the medical insurance marketplace. Usually trend in the medical insurance field has exceeded general goods and services in terms of inflation. So that's kind of a level set in terms of what are we seeing in the market and where are we seeing claims go. A lot of the cost drivers behind those high increases are the high cost claimants. So we're talking cancer, cell and gene therapies, new treatments that are coming down the pipe. All of those insurance, great things that are coming with medical care are coming at a very high cost that is being absorbed by insurance. So when we talk about cell and gene therapies, those are drugs that are life-saving, but they come at the cost of 2 to 4, upwards of $6 million for one treatment. And so really what the insurance carriers are trying to do is how do we finance those medical advancements? And so that's really what's driving renewal costs in the marketplace. So I will go on here. So that is in the standalone marketplace if you were to go direct to one of those carriers. Now, unique to the public sector is that you all have several options above and beyond what a private company would have. In Minnesota, there are 4 other established pools that you, as Carver County, could gain access to or receive a quote from. And so those are shown here. And so we like to give you not only the insurance market trends from a standalone marketplace, but also in the pools space within Minnesota. So starting at the left-hand side of the screen is PEEP. That is the state-managed insurance program. It's called the Public Employee Insurance Program. The other half of that program is the CGIP plan, which is the state employee plan. The PEEP plan operates much differently than the standalone market. It is a primary care-driven model. So every person that's on that plan seeks care through their primary care provider and then has to get referrals from there. So it's a much different program than what Carver County currently has, but it is available. And that pool has been around for a very long time. In 2025, so 2 years ago, they redid their regulations and they require a 4-year participation requirement. That's for pool stabilization to remain, to keep folks from jumping in and out of the pool for consistency across the pool. The only way out of a 4-year requirement is if a group receives a 20% or higher increase. So a group could come into PEEP, have let's just say a 5% year 1, but year 2, year 3, and year 4, you could get a 19, and there's no way to get out of that contract unless your renewal exceeds 20%. In terms of transparency with the PEEP insurance pool, we do get some claims, but we don't have a lot of data for those folks in that pool in terms of how the pool is performing. We do get some individual statistics, but that's just kind of how the nature of that pool. The carriers or the TPA for that pool are Health Partners and Blue Cross Blue Shield. So again, through that primary care model, folks pick, do they want Health Partners or Blue Cross Blue Shield? From there, they then determine their cost level and their benefits based on their primary care provider. So that's the PEEP pool in Minnesota. The second pool is the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium. That pool is the second largest in Minnesota. It is run by the service cooperatives in Minnesota. There's 7 of the 9 service cooperatives that pool together to form Minnesota Healthcare Consortium. That pool is a self-funded pool. The TPA is currently Medica, and the average renewal that we saw for that pool this past year, so for 2026, was an 11.7% increase. So they delivered renewals as low as single digits and as high as we did see 39% come out of the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium for an average large group increase of 11.7%. That particular pool does not give future year rate caps. I should also mention PEEP also does not provide rate caps. So the only way to get out of that PEEP is, again, 20 plus, but you don't have any rate cap protection in that pool. And MHC does occasionally provide rate caps, but is not super consistent or they don't guarantee those, I should say, for all groups within their pool. Then we have Sourcewell, or the Better Health Collective. So that is another pool in Minnesota managed by a service cooperative. Their average renewal increase for 2026 was a 12.9%. That pool is smaller yet from Minnesota Healthcare Consortium. They do provide 1-year future rate caps, and the rate caps that we saw that were released with the 2026 renewals ranged anywhere between a 12 and a 19%. Based on how the group is performing in terms of claims to premium. That is also a self-funded pool, and the carrier or the TPA is Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then finally, we have Logis. Logis is a Gallagher-managed pool. It's a fully insured pool. That pool renewal for 2026 was a 9%, and the renewals ranged from 6 to 12% within that pool. Again, that's fully insured. The others on here are self-funded. And the current TPA for Logis is Health Partners, but they are out for bid for 2027, 1/1 of 2027. Any questions on market trends or the update or these pools here shown on the screen?
Are these universally accepted? Are people going to have to change if we would take one of these? one of the major, you'd have to change a doctor, you have to change a dentist. We want to have, be accepted very well so people can keep their own carriers or their own providers.
Yep, that's a great question. So with each of the pools and the standalone carriers, we always look at provider network disruption. All carriers in Minnesota, all those major carriers have 99% of all providers, but whenever you do switch carriers, there is a percent of disruption that's unavoidable. So every carrier has their own formulary, so it might be Humalog on one and Novolog on the other. So there is some of that. And then from a provider disruption, it usually happens in chiropractic care and mental health care. So it's not zero, but we do look at that across the board if a change were to be, looked at deeper with the county here.
Pharmacy,
Yeah.
I know, is a piece of the equation. We talk about rates, but there's also pharmacy. Do these people have clarity of the actuals, or is this a pooling and there's some math going on?
Great question. So when you're if you're standalone, fully insured, there's not a lot of transparency into what the rebates are. If you're in one of the pools here, all pools shown on this screen don't have any more transparency than if you were fully insured. The pools that would have that data would likely be Minnesota Healthcare Consortium and Sourcewell, but I can share that they don't share it with their pool members. So the data's there, but that it's not typically shared with pool members in these particular pools shown here on the screen.
And then is there any advantage in any of these plans? I'm looking at the 6.3% rate, and I think most people would say if we could lock in 6.3% for 5 years, we would do it because of the risk. And Carrie, I know you've gotten us to 7%. I think we've told in the possibility of 1% or less. Is there built into these an advantage to go to, I don't know, Amazon Health, where you can do telehealth for the top 200 things? Because in my mind, I'm trying to rectify the healthcare industry as big, bad, sick care. I want to get our organization to healthcare, and I think the best way to do that is to get off the hamster wheel. So that's where my mind is going. But is there advantages of these users to use telemedicine first? That's a lower cost option. And if they do so, is there a benefit to their premiums?
Yes, that's a great question. In the arrangements shown here on the screen in a pooling model, you have less flexibility, particularly when we talk about the pools already established in Minnesota, than if we were to do something on the current fully insured plan or a self-funded plan. There are lots of different programs in the marketplace right now, like Kavira, for example, where it's direct primary care. It's a subscription-based model. The county would pay for that, and in turn, the employees would get care at no cost. We look at all of those solutions with the county leadership every single year to say, where does that break-even point hit, and when does it make most sense for us to launch a program like that? The biggest key driver of a program like you're talking about is participation, right? It comes down to, we can have every single program, but unless we have the participation to show the ROI, that's kind of the break-even point. So yes, we evaluate those types of solutions in the current arrangement that you currently have with the team at Carver County. Any other questions? All right. So the next slide here is talking about funding arrangements. So currently, Carver County is in a fully insured arrangement, which is on the left-hand side of the screen. So how fully insured works is the county pays a fixed premium every single month to the insurance carrier, and in exchange, the insurance carrier pays the claims for the county. If there's a year where claims are better than the premium, we don't get anything back. And if there's a year where claims exceed the premiums we've paid, we don't owe anything. So that's the beauty of fully insured, is you have that fixed premium, you don't have any additional risk, but on the downside, if there's a year where you perform better, you don't get premiums back. This arrangement has worked historically very, very well for Carver County, and Mia will talk about that a bit too. So that's where we currently are. Self-funded is kind of the next level up, or the next layer in terms of risk when we talk about insurance. So how a self-funded plan works is instead of just paying a fixed premium to the carriers, the county would pay a fixed administrative and stop loss fee. So green and dark blue at the top of that middle bar. Professional services are looped into your TPA agreement. So those top 3 bars is what you'd pay to your carrier. So you're paying a significantly amount less to your carrier to administer the plan, but in exchange, Carver County would then be paying for the claims as those come in. So if month 1, there's $2 million in claims, Carver County's cutting a check for $2 million in claims. Month 2, if it's $5 million, you're cutting the check, right? So those claims can vary month by month. So where in a fully insured arrangement, you have a fixed cost every single month. Self-funded, you're from a perspective of cash flow going out, you have a much more of a roller coaster ride, which is why reserves are important in a self-funded arrangement. When you go to a self-funded plan, in order to have a healthy, successful self-funded plan, it's important to be able to have a reserve balance and administer that plan very close to what the actuaries are predicting based on your claims coming in. There is upside in a self-funded arrangement in that if your claims do better than predicted or expected, that money gets put towards the reserves, right? To grow and build the reserves. In a year where claims exceed where we expect them to come in, Carver County has that additional risk. So there is risk, which can lead to reward, but there is also the opposite effect that you can have on a self-funded plan. So that's self-funded. Then on the far right-hand side, we have consortium, which is interchangeable with pool or trust or coalition. So what a consortium does is it takes self-funded to the next level. So it's a self-funded plan, and you're paying stop loss, administration, and professional services, so those bars at the top, but those bars get a little bit narrower. Those fixed costs that you pay every month get a little bit lower because you're pooling with other groups. So you're banding together, you're linking arms and saying, we're going to do this together. So you get a little bit of benefit from that perspective. And then when it comes to paying claims, the consortium or the pool pays the claims on behalf of all members. But when we calculate renewals in a consortium, claims up to a certain threshold, shown there in light blue, we still kind of work within Carver County. So if we look at all of Carver County claims up to a certain threshold takes place in the renewal. But then we have a banded layer, which is that brown. That's where you and other members of a consortium or pool would share risk. So that's where we're talking those high-cost cases, right? We are all going to pay a fee, pay a portion of our premium is going to go towards that pooled claims layer to help smooth out or mitigate the swings like you can see in a self-funded arrangement, right? If you have $2 million claims hit your own self-funded plan in a year, that can be devastating. That can be, financially, that can put burden on an organization. In a consortium model, if you have that same thing hit your plan, you've banded together, everyone is in it together, everyone is paying towards those high-cost claimants. Now, in a pool arrangement, there will be years where the county is helping others, and there will be years that others will be helping the county, right? So if you have that year where you have $2 million claimants, the amount of premium, so to say, that goes towards that banded layer may be less than what was actually paid out for your high-cost claimants. But in a year where you maybe don't have those high-cost claimants, someone else did, you're helping fund those high-cost claimants. So that pooled claims layer is truly where you're sharing risk with your counterparts in a consortium model. Now, all 3 of these arrangements, they all have pros and they all have cons, and they all fit in a time that fits right for the organization. So, from a Gallagher perspective, how I consult is I would never say, yep, we need to go self-funded tomorrow because there's a negative 5% on the table, because there's the opposite side, there's risk, right? So each of these arrangements makes sense at the right time for the organization based on the claims, the makeup of the organization. There's several factors that go into that decision-making process. But we bring all of these to the table because they are all options, and we want to keep the county's eyes wide open to everything that's available in the marketplace.
What's the leadership of a consortium look like?
Yep.
I mean, you were tied to it with your stint somewhere else. Now you're back with Gallagher. But like,
Yep.
if we brought 1,500 belly buttons to the table and city of whatever brings 35, how does that get structured in a legal way so you can vote your belly buttons?
Yep. So I'm just going to go back a screen. So in these current pool arrangements that the county has access to, I came from Minnesota Healthcare Consortium. I had a stint there. That consortium manages the consortium. The individual members don't have a say in how that pool is managed. When we talk about the scale insurance pool, banding together, making a self-funded pool, that pool structure is very different in that the goal end goal structure is to get a voice at every table. And currently, we're trying to get a situation where there would be weighted voting. So if there's someone, there's 10 members in the pool, and we have one member that has 500 belly buttons, and we have one member that has 30, that there's weight to those votes. Currently, being fully transparent, Minnesota state statute says one vote, one member. And so that is all being worked out through the scale insurance pool feasibility, JPAs and bylaws with legal counsel, with legislation, all of those components. So currently it says one vote, one member. There are multiple ways you can structure a pool, as not to go into the weeds, but if we go into the weeds, you could say we have 10 members and we're only going to have 3 on our board. How the scale pool has been set up is every member has said, I want a voice at that table. And so that's why we're trying to go forward or move forward with a weighted voting so that everyone does have a voice at the table, but that those voices at the table have appropriate weight based on the belly buttons on the plan.
Technicality, but it's a small enough shift. If somebody assigned their vote, could they assign their vote to a single person that's their agent, if you will, to say, 35 people are signing up, we're going to cast our vote, you're going to be the one that's going to cast on our behalf?
I don't know the specific answer to that because that gets into the legal component, which is out of my purview. But we could ask the legal person that we're working with.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, if I could, good questions. And I think one of the intents today was to educate, certainly, and that's a real big concern as we look at the scale model. We've known it's a concern for a while, but it became an even bigger problem when the Department of Commerce said it doesn't fit into their rules, and they're the regulatory agency. So there was a proposal for weighted voting coming out of Scott County. We didn't really respond to that. They proposed it, and remember they have some cities too. We got 4 votes. Scott got 5, and each city got 1. I think that was the composition. Whether that was good or bad, I'm not sure, because we didn't get that far. The Department of Commerce said, nope, can't do it. So I've heard it's been tough to keep up to this thing, quite frankly. We got brought in a little bit late. I've heard varying things happen. Where'd that come from? I heard Scott County proposed legislation, and last minute, it didn't make it, right? So now here we are resetting. Our recommendation is back away from that. It's not really feasible right now, quite frankly. I would not recommend going in with one vote, certainly. At this point. But that's a real important point, and one of the main reasons we came in today. We're going to talk about that during our joint session next week. My recommendation as the leadership group's recommendation is the same. Let's stay in the game. Let's keep an eye on this thing. But Gallagher does a really nice job of not just saying, well, let's focus on one thing. Let's focus on these 3 high-level things, and then look at them each on an ongoing basis. And timing is everything. Right, and there's a real big timing concern with that consortium. I feel a bit relieved, quite frankly, that I'm sure me is like, oh my gosh, thank you. To negotiate the deal and everything else. But anyway, I wanted to point that out because that is a real big topic for you as the governing body here to focus on. And don't commit. I would suggest don't commit to one way or another as you're talking to your colleagues. Just say, yeah, we're interested. Let's keep pursuing it.
And as we continue today, we're going to talk about our fully insured stuff for 27, what would be explored for self-funded for 27, and the pool. So a lot more information to come.
Before you slide off this one, it seems like maybe it'd be helpful if there was one more chunk, which is a fluctuating chunk. Either gives us savings, which is probably why we would do so, or some other advantage. Information might be one of them to make better decisions. But self-insured and consortium, there's not a band there that says savings, because that's the primary reason we would consider moving. There's secondary reasons as well. So we wouldn't do all the extra administration, extra staffing if it didn't mean, I don't know, call it 3% or more in savings, right?
Yep, and there's actually a slide that will address that exact question in
Okay.
just a couple moments.
Before we get there, though, just a couple of things, looking at the metro area on health insurance funding. As Colleen discussed, there's the 3 funding arrangements, right? Fully insured, self-funded, and consortium. And in the 7-county metro area, we're currently almost a 50-50 split. So 4 counties are self-funded, Anoka, Dakota, Hennepin, and Scott, and 3 counties are fully insured. So Ramsey, Washington, and us at Carver County are fully insured.
Did they flip back or have they just never been fully insured?
Which one?
Ramsey and Washington.
They've always been fully insured. As long as I've been at the county, they've been fully
Okay,
insured. I
thanks.
just verified with them recently. Looking back historically, this chart compares annual health insurance premium increases for 4 of those counties in the metro, so Carver, Dakota, Scott, and Washington, over an 11-year period. Scott and Dakota, again, operate under self-funded arrangements. Carver and Washington are fully insured. Across the time period shown, all 4 counties experienced steady upward pressure on health insurance costs with an average of 5.2% to 6.6% annual increases, with Carver being the second lowest average over this period at 5.4%. So health insurance costs have increased materially for all counties, regardless of their funding arrangement. This next slide, maybe, oh, there we go, is the same data from that chart before, but in a line graph to see how the trends have evolved from 2016 to 2026. I know the colors get a little hard to decipher, but Carver County is what should look like a darker blue line with the large dips in 2017 and 2025. For those that have been around for this time period, those were years we had RFPs and took large decreases after a market request. So this visual makes it clear that while each county has its own pattern, all of us are navigating sustained upward cost pressure over the long term. Again, regardless of the funding arrangement, 2 of us are fully insured, 2 of us are self-insured. With that, Colleen is going to talk about our medical renewal for January 1, 2027.
All right, so now that we've kind of like sets the stage in terms of market, in terms of options, let's talk a little bit about what the county is facing for 1/1 of 27. So I'm pleased to let you all know that we have secured a negotiated, fully insured renewal for the county at 7% over current. The experience needed, so what that means is based on your claims and your premiums, where do the actuaries say that the renewal should be set, and where should funding be set? That came in at 16.6%. Health Partners released the renewal at 10%, and we were able to negotiate the renewal down to a 7% overall. And that's, again, for the current fully insured plan. Again, fixed premiums, they pay the claims. The only component that would change from a plan design standpoint that would impact employees is that the county has 3 plans currently. 2 of them are HSA compatible. The lower deductible HSA currently is at a $3,400 single deductible and a $6,800 family deductible. The IRS every year releases an amount that plans must follow to remain embedded, and that plan is right at that threshold. And just on Friday, the IRS released that amount, and so that plan will be going up to $3,500 for singles and $7,000 for families. So that negotiated renewal of 7% will dip ever so slightly, less than 1%, because of those increases in deductibles by the IRS. Now, I just want to drive home to Mia's point, too, that, when we talk about medical insurance trend, we're talking anywhere from 9 to 12%. So when we're looking at that renewal, we've secured a renewal below where medical trend is, even though given where our claims position is in the market.
And Colleen, just
Yep.
to that point on the negotiated renewal, how did those negotiations come into play? Or originally, were we at, for example, we'd like 5%, the delivered renewals at 10%? We're a big player in that pool. We'll work with you, or how does that negotiation come
Yep,
together?
that's exactly how that looks. So as Gallagher, we go back to Health Partners and we say, hey, based on our actuarial analysis, we see your numbers, we see our numbers. We feel that 5%, 6% is doable. We feel that that's appropriate. We negotiate from there, and we landed on a 7%. The biggest component about negotiations is making sure that the renewal funding meets and doesn't set us up for a backwards trend trajectory next year, right? So from a consulting perspective, this is my philosophy. I would never go to a carrier and say, I think you need a -10, right? Because I don't want to set someone up for they take a -10 and then next year we're set up for a 30%. So I use all of the data given to me by our actuaries to bring them, hey, I believe 5 to 6% is appropriate, and we settled on 7.
Thank you.
Do we know if we're it's a loaded question. Do we know if we're healthier now than we were 2 years ago? Because all of it's funny math that gets built on top of if we have an insurable pool and we've got leverage and we can bring our healthy pool, people will vie for our belly buttons. Are we healthier now than we were 2 years ago?
In terms of a loss ratio from 2 years ago to now, we have a higher loss ratio and more high claimants than we did 2 years ago.
Wow.
Our high-cost claimants are higher than they were 2 years ago. And that's not unique to Carver County. We're seeing that across the board. So those high-cost claimants, like I kind of mentioned earlier, instead of being, $200,000-$300,000, we're seeing them in excess of $700,000, $800,000. So to answer your question broadly, the cost or the health of the pool today versus 2 years ago is definitely increased in the negative way, but not by a long, I can also tell you it's not like, oh, we've went upside down either. So it is sicker in terms of today versus 2 years ago.
And we shifted to higher deductible. Question, and I won't go any deeper than this. Of our high claims people, are the majority of those non-employees? And I ask that because a lot of the things that we do is guided towards, the $100, $200 that you get is do all the things, but it's not available to non-employees. If we're focusing our lens on only half the pool to make us healthier, I keep pondering if there's a way that we can do it differently to be healthier.
Yep. So off the top of my head, without looking at the data, I would have to dig out that number in terms of what percent of the high-cost claimants are dependents versus employees. Typically in a group, it's about 50-50, but I'll look up that data point for you as a follow-up.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, could I follow up on that question? Are you aware of any comparable plans to us, public sector in particular, that don't have dependents
No.
in their plan?
Nope. Across public sector, I don't know of any public sector employer that incentivizes dependents specifically to go off the plan. There are a few cities, and I would have to look back at the benchmarking. I know that there's a very small handful yet of counties that have an opt-out waiver, but how an opt-out waiver works is it's not specific to dependents. It gives the employee the option to get a cash taxable amount to opt out of the plan, but there are a lot of implications that go with that. We don't want to incentivize healthy risk off the plan, and there's really no way to ensure that that happens. And so the carriers don't like to see an opt-out cash reward. It doesn't always bode well for favorable renewals because we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we're incentivizing folks to go elsewhere, then we're attracting only the risk that needs the health insurance, and then our pool kind of, whether it's fully insured plan or whatever that is, kind of spirals into a death spiral. So from your perspective, to answer your question, there aren't any specific counties or cities that have an opt-out if you have specific dependent coverage elsewhere. It is seen in the private space a little bit, but there's lots of implications and compliance risks tied around it. And so I don't see it in the public sector, or I haven't seen it in the public sector in my purview.
Yeah, thanks. That's good information. I think we had an opt-out at one point, and as we looked at it, we were saying, or I know we were worried about healthy folks leaving, and that was eliminated at one point.
That happened to me, right? I was getting $1,800 a year for not taking insurance. And Mia enlightened me, said, let's reinvest that down into family plans. So we bought that. We essentially shifted and bought those down to attract more healthy people to our plan. Is that, yeah.
And we have seen
Significant family growth, which is really good to see on a plan because that increases the health of our pool. It increases the bodies that we're spreading risk across. Young risk usually is healthy risk, and so we've seen that across the last 2 years. Yep.
And that addition of the high deductible plan in 2025 has been performing really well and it's gained a lot of interest from employees.
Yep. Yeah, the transition from a traditional like copay style plan to an HSA plan, it's a paradigm shift for a lot of employees. And so the county, the HR team, the employee relations team has done a really good job about educating employees in terms of how these plans operate, how the HSA, saving in an HSA is important when you're on a plan like that. So it takes a lot of education, and I applaud the county team here for doing that, as we've seen really healthy growth on those plans.
And by the way, not to belabor this, but Scott, as we look at our competitors, and by the way, thank you, board, for the investment. Significant impacts, especially with hiring and retention. But on the HSA plan, I heard that Scott doesn't offer an HSA plan, which
You're correct.
absolutely shocked me. I think it's one of the best tax investment vehicles that you can get.
Yep.
Right?
And I can actually speak to that a little bit, and then I'm going to move on to the self-funded analysis. But Scott County currently does not have an HSA plan offering. They are looking to add that for 1/1 of 27. So they're actively in those conversations already. But again, it's that paradigm shift, and you have to be invested. You have to have investments from the board. Folks get scared, right, to go from a $700 deductible to a $3,400 deductible. And so when that investment is made, it can change a whole person's outlook on insurance. And I think how I always look at it as the healthy people, they are as the county invests in the HSA contributions, you're investing in that person. And if they're healthy this year, they get to keep that money. They get to keep your investment. It doesn't go to the insurance company, right? That's their money. And in the years where they have a bad year and they need to meet that deductible, that helps them satisfy that deductible so that they can get the care that they need. So yeah, I agree with that statement. So that's the fully insured renewal and kind of the HSA update. From a self-funded plan standpoint, through this renewal process, we also received a self-funded offer from Health Partners to evaluate alongside of our fully insured offering. When we look at the self-funded offer, again, you pay that fixed amount for stop-loss premiums and admin, that TPA expense, and then you have that claims risk. And how they calculate the claims risk is they give you expected claims funding rates and they give you maximum. So they say where we think your claims will come in and what your max risk exposure is until the stop loss picks up. And so in an expected claim, so if everything were to perform appropriately on the plan, we were to perform at expected claims, receive the anticipated rebates that were proposed, the plan would have costed 8% more than current plan. If we were in a max case scenario, we would be looking at a 26% increase. So again, the amount would be yet to be determined, right? Based on how claims perform, we would be following that and tracking that. But the best case scenario would be an 8% if we performed at expected, and the worst case scenario until stop loss hits would be a 26% at the max claims risk. And those percentages include us receiving rebates back from the prescription drugs. So both of those include that. The other thing to note on a self-funded arrangement is, like I mentioned earlier, self-funded, fully insured, the timing is everything. Claims, all of those components play a factor in it. Self-funded, there are some additional internal management controls and administrative costs in terms of filing PCORI fees, filing some of those reports that the carrier currently files on behalf of the county. So just another component to consider as we look at all of our options and when is the right time to move to a different funding arrangement.
How long until cash is needed? Meaning if we went self-funded today, we get to collect the premiums today.
Yep.
Once it goes through the claim cycle, are we 60 days, 90 days out? So you don't need cash for...
It's typically 60 days. And so in theory, if you start a self-funded health plan, you're correct. You're collecting premiums. There is a delay when those claims hit. However, we like to consult, it's my philosophy that we would want to have 2 to 3, max of 6 months in reserves ready in case that worst case scenario. To your point, yep, you're already kind of stashing cash even if you don't have a reserve balance, but there's no guarantee that that high cost claimant doesn't hit January 30th or February 10th, right? And so having a reserve going into a self-funded plan is going to set that self-funded plan up for success. You could go in with no funding, but you're not really setting yourself up for a successful plan, because if there's a cash call, you need to be able to, flow that cash from somewhere else.
If that bucket gets filled up, and I'm sure there's parameters, but if that bucket gets filled up in excess of what's needed, can there be a cash disbursement back to your members?
Typically, there's not a cash disbursement direct to the members. Typically, what happens is, let's say our goal is to always keep 3 to 5 months in reserves, and we performed really, really well this year, and we have 7 months of reserves. Typically, what would happen is then we would do the actuarial calculation of the renewal. It would say, based on your renewal, you should have let's just say a 9% renewal. You can buy that renewal down with that excess reserve. That's typically what happens with a reserve. The other thing that you can do with a reserve balance is you can look at those point solutions. So say, we're performing really well. We have healthy reserves. We're going to input and we're going to pay that direct primary care Kavira, and we're going to pay that out of our reserves. We're not going to pass that to employees to help mitigate or manage some concept on our plan. Other point solutions include there's like different cancer care management programs and point solutions that can kind of target those high cost claimants, which is a lot of times what reserves are used for, or to buy the renewal down. So those are kind of the options that people look at.
I just ponder out loud that if we had an excess reserve in a future state, and it was the equivalent of everybody getting that was participating a check for $1,000 around Christmas time, I think that it would hypothetically have an impact so that people would care more about their health, talk more about it, urge their peers to get involved, get healthier, et cetera. Because we all, on the board, we've all asked the question, how do we get healthier?
Yeah.
Is it moving something from $100 to $200? I don't know if we've seen that tangible result. We feel good about it. We think it's the right thing. But if somebody got a check every year and it was 1,000 this year and last year was 800, or the next year it was 800, they might be like, wait a minute, we got to get more healthy. Or if it was 1,200, how do we get that check at the end of the year? I just ponder if anybody's done that, and if there's any data where that result, the hypothetical result, was validated.
Right. I don't know of any scenario here in Minnesota, particularly in public sector, where that approach has been taken. I have, in like a fully insured arrangement, heard of a premium holiday, something like that, but I've never actually had a client or been in a scenario where they've actually given a check back. Not saying it's not possible, but just saying we'd have to check with compliance, regulations, taxability, all of those components. Yep.
Mr. Chair, if I could add to that point, I think there is at least a conceptual point to be made. When you have self-insurance, there's more commitment buy-in. We have a committee. It's looked at more as sort of our money. This is all theoretical, right? But it may play out that way. But obviously, under this scenario, this is dreaming. Because we're not recommending this self-insurance plan because we're not the greatest risk. Fortunately, we do have this other option. But I do think, again, let's keep it out there. Definitely, I think there is that potential advantage to get this buy-in. And I think the best point I could make, and Mia knows this, our distinctions plan. Do the math. I don't mean to embarrass anybody here. You shouldn't be on it, right? Do the math, and you should not be on it. And we still have 40 folks for a variety of reasons, right? They maybe just don't want to do the math. They don't trust us. But a big part was education and commitment and buy-in, and right. So hopefully you don't have the distinctions plan. But
If I try to educate employees as much as I can and make sure we put together that best worst case in the last couple of years to really try to hammer home where their dollars are going.
Looking at what we know today, because you had mentioned administration costs. Assuming those are FTEs, if we went to a self-funded analysis, is that 2 FTEs or is that 10 more FTEs to manage those costs?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, as we've looked at it, it's, between employee relations and finance, there would be an additional FTE need self-funded more so than pooled, but additional FTE on a pooled arrangement as well. I would say potentially looking at one FTE in each of the divisions. I think when we looked at Scott County has been self-insured since the early 90s. They have historically had a benefits manager full-time that only focused on benefits. She's recently retired, but we don't have, as you guys are aware, benefits is one portion of my job at Carver County, and all the business partners work with their selected divisions, but we don't have an FTE dedicated to manage only benefits. And especially on the self-funded side, and Mary Kay is very educated on this as well, there are a lot of additional compliance requirements, and I know Colleen mentioned, currently on the fully insured side, Health Partners takes care of the majority of our compliance requirements, whereas most of those would come in-house to internal staff as well. And health insurance compliance is very important and very timeline driven, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to track. It's not like everything happens on January 1. There's different compliance items throughout the year.
Any other questions on the renewal or self-funded or the plan designs? Okay. So then we'll move in to talk a little bit deeper about scale. So I kind of gave you a little bit of a purview at the beginning, comparing the different mechanisms, but let's talk a little bit about what does a pool or a consortium look like. And so when I say pool and consortium, we're talking the scale pool. So a cooperative is a collection of employers that come together to leverage their ability in the marketplace. And so consortium, trust, pool, coalition, all of those are used interchangeably. I typically use the word pool, but if you hear me say coalition or cooperative, that it's all one and the same. So what it is it would be a single plan that covers all of the employees of two or more unrelated employers. So meaning yourself and Scott County and other cities pooling together. It's one plan, it's one stop loss contract, it's one administrative services contract with a carrier, and then underneath that, the actuaries determine the actual renewals for each of those entities within the pool. A member, when we talk about member in a pool, the member would be Carver County, the entity. So when we typically talk about member, it's the employee, the member on the plan. But when we talk about a coalition or a pool, member is any one entity that's part of the pool. And who would be interested in a pool arrangement like this? Typically, it's members that have a generally similar profile. In the case of scale, you're all public sector Minnesota employers. There are lots of pools that are school related, public sector related, industry related. Typically, they have a generally similar profile when you're pooling together. A lot of times or oftentimes you're tied together for other reasons outside of healthcare. So you have a working relationship, you do other things outside of health insurance, and you have a common compensation and benefits philosophy. And when we say common, it's not like, hey, we all give $500 towards our premiums, but in general, we have a common philosophy like Carver County. Hey, we went away from opt-out because we want to allow risk on the plan. Very conceptual, high-level things, how we view insurance. Typically, you have a common philosophy within a pool. You also have a collaborative working environment, so that's kind of like in the second bullet, tied together for other reasons. You are collaboratively working with your peer members. You have a willingness to challenge one another and improve as a group. So these conversations are hard, right? We have these conversations at Carver County, and when we talk about them with our peers, not every conversation results in everyone having the same idea. So you have to have the willingness to challenge your other peer members and willingness to hear other members within the pool. And then a desire to grow and evolve over time. So insurance is ever changing. Insurance 10 years ago versus today and where it's going to be in 10 years is going to be dramatically different. And so as we navigate that changing landscape, all the members kind of have to have that common goal of we're willing to do what it takes to make sure that we're thriving in 2 and 3 and 5 years. And then you have a willingness to share risk. So as I mentioned before, there is that pooled claims layer, right? There will be years where you are subsidizing others, and there will be years where you are being helped. And so to Commissioner Uderman's point, there's another slide that talks about that specifically that I'll get into in a second. But why would you do it? Really, it goes back to linking arms. We know that the health insurance market is tumultuous, and how do we navigate it together, right? Can we leverage together our buying power to manage and mitigate risk across all of our plans? So in a pooled environment, renewals are typically more consistent. And so like Mia said, like whether it's fully insured or self-funded, you saw those diagrams that for the most part, those four or five counties are about within 1 to 2% of each other in terms of average renewal. But when you look at a fully insured arrangement, which Carver County is very aware of, we have the very stark decrease and then an increase. So you ride the wave a bit more. From a self-funded perspective, there are still peaks and valleys, but they're a little bit more navigated. And when you're in a pool, those peaks and valleys should be navigated even less. And there should be less. Not that there won't be, but they're going to be more consistent across the board. Improve predictability with larger population. This is law of large numbers. When we all go together, we have law of large numbers, and there's going to be more predictability within our population when we look at calculating the renewals each year. The pool would retain underwriting profits. So any profits gained by the insurance carrier would be retained by the pool. The greater effectiveness with cost savings initiatives, so that goes back to managing reserves within a pool. You'd be managing those reserves with others because the assets would be owned by the pool, but that's where you work together and say, hey, our pool is performing really well. What point solution do we need to attack? Where do we need to put a program in place to continue to maintain health on our plan or mitigate risk on the high cost claimant side? And then expand member offerings. So again, that's back to point solutions. What programs can we put in place to continue to offer a best-in-class benefits package? Administrative efficiencies and collaboration with peer members. So again, when you're in a pooled arrangement, you're not navigating the self-insured stop-loss renewals on your own. You're navigating that with your peers. You're navigating the high-cost claimants. You're navigating whatever is coming down the legislative pipe, all together with your peer members in a pool.
Before we jump ahead to some additional pool education, I just want to point out the two items that are highlighted on the screen in the WHO column. So as we continue to explore the scale insurance pool option, these highlighted items have been identified as potential challenges in relation to this particular pool. One key question to consider is whether Carver County is sufficiently similar in profile to the other participating entities. So the scale insurance pool option that we've been exploring is primarily composed of cities and a small watershed district. Some of these organizations would contribute fewer than 10 employees, while others, like Carver County, would be contributing 600 to 700 or more employees. Along with Carver has, and the larger entities have additional labor union and negotiation related considerations. So given this wide variation in size and structure, the county may also want to consider alternative options, including whether a pool arrangement with other counties would potentially present a better fit.
So this is the slide that I referenced several slides ago. So to Commissioner Uderman's point, this is how pools perform within the marketplace. So when we look at the red line dot, that is medical insurance trend across from 2012 to 2023. If we say medical insurance trend between 2012 and 2023 averaged at 8%, and medical trend now in 2024 to 2026 is 9 to 12%. Each of the pools that Gallagher managed have outperformed trend. So not that in every year you're getting an outperforming trend renewal, but overall average, you will outperform trend. And that is really what a pool is designed to do. It's not designed to say this is the silver bullet, you're never going to have an increase anymore. I'm not here to tell you that. A pool is designed to help you stay at or below trend and navigate it together, arms linked with your peers. And so again, I also have been very clear in the pool scale feasibility study, how the pool is currently set up, kind of back to that banded claims layer in the claims. Pools, in general, pools will only fail for 3 reasons. One, they don't follow their bylaws. So if you write in your bylaws, we're going to stick to 3 months of reserves, and you didn't stick to 3 months of reserves, that's an issue. The second is you don't take the actuary's advice. So when those renewals are calculated every year, if the actuary says, hey, your claims are coming in at this, you need a renewal of this, and the pool membership says, we think we can do better than that, that's, an issue, right? That's where a pool can fail. And then 3, you don't rate based on your individual group needs. And so that's where I've been very clear. In the scale pool, every entity will get their own renewal within the pool. So while we are sharing risk at a level, you still have an individual renewal calculation so that in those years where you are experiencing a lot of claims between 0 and wherever the banded layer starts, you are going to have a renewal to reflect that. We don't want in a pool arrangement to have one group over subsidizing another group, right? If one of those members that has 10 employees is off the charts, they're still in the pool, they get the linked arms, we're all banding together for that banded layer, but they will get an appropriate renewal increase to make sure that everyone else doesn't over subsidize one group that's dragging the pool down. And so that's another philosophy in terms of how pools are managed. And that's how Gallagher manages our self-funded pools, is we actuarially rate them individually. And so I've been very clear to say, this pool isn't the silver bullet. It's not that you come into this pool and everyone gets the same increase. It will be appropriate for your group, and yet there will be transparency across the pool showing what that looks like. And in the scale feasibility, you'll see not every group going in has a decrease year 1. There might be someone that's actually paying more in year 1, but they're bought into the concept that I know I'm paying a little bit more in year 1, but there is going to be a year, inevitably, where a high cost claim is going to hit me. And I want to be able to navigate that together. And that's what a pool is here to do, is to help you navigate together and know that there's going to be good years and there's going to be bad. Actuarially, over a 5-year period, you're going to have 3 good years and 2 bad. So that's kind of the philosophy behind a pool.
Is there a health disparity equalizer? We know about fiscal disparities on our board, but health disparity, meaning if we're the hero and everybody else is trying to pull us down, will that pool shift money over time if it becomes too glaring versus them just, or us just leaving a pool eventually? Is there a way to equalize it within the pool, recognizing that you're going to have some years your ups and downs, but if one is clearly the healthiest and one isn't, how long do you stay in?
Yep. So currently, the pool bylaws are set up for a 5-year requirement.
Okay.
That's pretty typical kind of back to that actuarial thing. Actuaries show that in a 5-year period, you're going to have good and bad. And so that's where I feel very strongly that the pool is off to the right start, right? Like you have those components in place that you aren't going to have people like, hey, I had a really good year and I had no high cost claimants and I'm going to leave because now there's a fully insured renewal on the table that's going to buy my business. You're in the pool kind of for the long haul because you believe in the long haul concept that it will save not 5% every single year, but you're saving 1 to 2%, right? You're beating trend year over year, and that small amount adds up year over year over year. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, that makes sense.
So as we continue to explore the possibility of joining the scale insurance pool, we need to consider the advantages and disadvantages of this arrangement. On the positive side, actuarial projections for 2027 predicted a potential increase as low as 1% in year 1. There is also potential for increased financial stability or stabilization of increases over the long term by being in a pooled arrangement. Pool membership would also allow us to retain our current benefit plan options, so our currently offered 2 HSA plans with comparable deductibles, as well as our traditional copay plan design option we continue to offer. And the scale pool would present an opportunity for expanded collaboration among the members. However, participation would also require special legislation to allow for appropriate governance, including weighted voting, to account for the significant differences in sizes of organizations considering this pool. Without the legislative change, each member would have 1 vote, regardless of the member's size. So a city with 2 employees would have the same vote as Carver County with 675 plus on our medical plan. This structure results in a significant loss of control over decisions. The majority of the likely pool members are smaller cities, which are likely to have differing interests and bring a different profile compared to Carver County. The insurance pool would also shift many decisions away from the county to the pool board, reducing county control. Items like choice of medical carrier, pharmacy benefit manager, reserve policies would all be decisions voted on by the pool board. And the process to move to a self-funded model or a pool also requires achieving agreements with each of the unions. Entrance into the pool would require a minimum of 3 months of premiums, front-loaded to pay premiums, and it's still up for determination. The pool board still needs to decide if additional reserve funding will be needed from members to participate. Additionally, what is also still need to be determined is if we run low on funds, there's a potential for cash call to members as well. So similar to a self-funded, if we got hit with our high claims right away earlier in the year, or we were low on our reserves and had to do a cash call, we could experience a cash call from the pool. The pool requires a 5-year minimum commitment, which Colleen just talked about as well. Right now, the bylaws read that you're deemed an expulsion, and it's unclear consequences at this time for early exit. The pool board still needs to make those decisions. So overall, the scale insurance pool could stabilize costs and foster collaboration, but introduces significant governance, financial, operational constraints that must be considered against the county's priorities. So just bringing it back to the 3 funding arrangement options we talked about at the beginning, fully insured, self-funded, or pool. There are numerous considerations to keep in mind when analyzing the funding arrangements. In a fully insured arrangement, the carrier, so right now we're with Health Partners, that would be our carrier, determines certain offerings, so weight loss medications. That's all determined by the carrier, and it's responsible for a large portion of the compliance requirements. In a self-funded arrangement, the insurance committee is much more robust. Unions and business agents are much more involved in committees and discussions. There are additional challenges and potential for controversial decisions regarding items like weight loss drugs, funder reserve balance, amount spent on administrative fees, and difficult decisions related to whether the self-funded arrangement would cover certain care needs. In a pool arrangement, decisions are made by the county, or I'm sorry, by the pool board, and the county will lose their decision-making autonomy. In both self-funded and pool, as we mentioned, additional staff would be needed to manage the health plan and the additional compliance requirements that go along with them. It should be noted that no single funding arrangement is inherently better than the other. As we have shown today, counties that have maintained self-funded or pooled arrangements over the years have not achieved lower annual increases on average when viewed over the last 10 or so years. When making decisions, the unique aspects of our organization must be taken into account, including our group insurance history and experience, labor relations considerations, our risk level, internal resources required to manage that funding option, as well as costs and profile of available options. So there are unique advantages and disadvantages of all 3 funding arrangements. Carver County's current position is reasonably sound in relation to the market. We have a fully insured health plan arrangement with a 7% better than trend renewal for 2027 and an average 5.4% health insurance renewal trend over the last 11-year period. Employee Relations recommends taking a measured approach and conducting a thorough analysis of potential options and opportunities, just as our team has done over the last decade plus. A move to self-funded health insurance or entering a pool is not necessarily in the best interest of the county, but these alternative funding options could present beneficial and financially advantageous opportunities, depending on a host of details and still a lot of questions to be answered. Therefore, we recommend continuing the process to evaluate and compare our best options, conducting a complete analysis of the pros and cons and important considerations based on valid, accurate data, and remaining open to potential future changes that would offer clear rewards and advantages to the county. So before we open it up, we're continuing to pursue and explore the scale insurance pool option for a potential January 1, 2028 launch. There are still a number of issues and questions that need to be worked through, including but not limited to whether weighted voting could be allowed through a legislative action. The county is in a good position for January 1, 2027 with a negotiated 7% renewal on our fully insured plan with Health Partners. And Employee Relations will continue to evaluate the options and considerations for different funding arrangements to ensure we continue with an approach that best supports the county's priorities and goals. At this time, we'll open the floor for questions and discussion.
I have a quick question. So why does the Department of Commerce, this maybe is what's a political question maybe, statutory question, why does the Department of Commerce have a law that says Carver County has the same vote as a 12-member something or the other to protect the little guy?
While the legal side of it is out of my purview, I can just say it's a statute that governs all health insurance pools in Minnesota. It's not abnormal. Most pools do have one vote, one member. What I would say is unique about the scale insurance pool is you have the very vast differences in your membership, 600 life group and a 10 life group. And so when those rules were written, which was probably a very long time ago, it was probably blanket statement written. And so our unique situation doesn't fit within that model. And so I guess that's kind of the extent that I can say, not being like a legal advisor. So
Kind of funny, but I had the same question. So I asked Gemini.
Oh,
So put an
What
asterisk
did Gemini say?
It's actually pretty impressive.
Did you start with Copilot first?
No, for some reason I used Gemini. Did I share that with you, Colleen?
I don't think I
That was
saw
a
that.
very robust response. It basically
Yeah.
boils down to their regulatory agency. And it is a little bit of, they're protecting the little guy here. They not only regulate sort of corporate governance issues, they regulate, in this case, public sector governance issues.
Private
So they don't want us sort of ganging up on one of these small cities and saying, you're out because you're a bad risk. And so that was sort of the long and short of what I remember reading.
And to play a little bit of devil's advocate here too, in a pooled philosophy, when we talk about like when they wrote that, right? One member, one vote. When we're talking about what we're voting on, we're talking about voting on TPA, PBM, how do we proceed? And the idea behind a pool is we're all in this together with a common goal. And so I think that's kind of also where one vote, one member starts as well, in terms of like, if we're committed to this pool, we all have a common goal, we all have a common philosophy, one vote, one member. But again, that's just my
golly, it
opinion.
seems like we should tell that to the Met Council. And all sorts of other organizations.
All
Weren't
sorts
we all
of
in
other
this together?
organizations.
Maybe we're not.
The legislature, everyone, government.
But it does, if I could follow up on that, it does make me question this special legislation and whether it would be challenged. But it calls out sort of these issues we're grappling with. We certainly don't want one vote and, a city with two employees, not to pick on anybody here, but has the same vote. We don't want to go into that sort of inequity, given the high stakes that we're dealing with here. But stay tuned on it.
Yeah.
So it's coincidental because the very people that could benefit from it are the ones that the rule is supposedly written for. I'll just use an example. Dave and I don't, maybe there was somebody else in there at a leaders meeting a couple months ago. Victoria talked about, the city of Victoria talked about 35 employees.
Yep.
And they're looking at a 20% increase each year for the next 2 years. If they were to bolt onto this and even not be a bolting member, they would run it and say, absolutely, we're in, we trust you. And they would get a 13% savings, which to them is significant, right?
Huge.
Also, from a math perspective, if my math is right, a 1% savings on whatever our trajectory is versus what we can get to is about $150,000. So about 5% of healthcare savings equals 1 point of levy. So if we just look at how we're looking at it, because we've got big levy conversations coming up, and I'm looking at you, Carrie, because I saw that slide of where we were going and where we're going to be. By simply having the leverage of we might leave or we might do something else, I think helped your team get to that 7% and hard work to do there. Of course, I want it to be 1%, but we were facing the same thing, 15% maybe, and you got us to 7%, so that's big, and I don't think that always gets communicated to the staff. It's huge in the last 4 years, right? What you guys have been able to do. I've heard nothing but good things about you. This presentation was great. You diving in and engaged more than I've seen Gallagher before, so thank you for that. And I think the punchline of all this is, how do we get healthier? And so I lean on you and whoever else we were using as consultants. It's not an email to talk about our health. It's probably not the $100 to $200, although I think it helps tell people we're working on your behalf. I don't know that there's a silver bullet. Maybe the $80 million being spent on a new building probably helps us with some of it too, but help us get to the place to how do we get healthier? Because that's ultimately where we need to go. All the other stuff doesn't matter. If our base isn't getting healthier from a feel-good standpoint and the right thing to do, but also from a financial standpoint, none of this stuff really matters. And so help us get to a healthier organization, however that is. So thank you.
Could I clarify the math? Excuse me, Commissioner Anderson. I didn't ask Gemini, but I asked Mary Kay.
Even more reliable.
Even better than Gemini. better than co-pilot, but, and help me now, here goes my memory. I thought the 7% was like a percent on levy. And we're around 800,000 on levy now. Because remember, we pay 100% of the freight for single, not 80%. So you have all those dynamics. So yeah, and.
But if 12% went to 7, right? If we were going to be at 12% increase for insurance and we achieved 7%, that 5% delta in levy equals 1% that 5% in insurance costs would equal 1% in levy.
No, 7%
I mean,
delta.
you said 800,000 for
7% delta equals 1% levy.
Yeah, the 7%, when we did the math, if we did a 7% premium increase, that was very close to 1% levy. And it's not straight math because we have to remember what it costs for family insurance versus single insurance, and that comes.
Okay, that's helpful. Yep. Yep, that's the gap.
That
Yep.
very much factors in that.
I know it's.
And it was like 10 to negotiate into 7.
But I thought it was I really need that number to get perspective, because you look at these pros and cons, you go, well, how much is this worth? Because there's a lot of downsides. Is it worth 1%? And it's not just pure math, right? And remember, that's 1 year. And by the way, that's a projection. That's not the final. So all these actuarials doing their thing, and I know there was some disagreement. Dakota County, for example, is disagreeing with the numbers they saw from you, all those things. It's big money, and I think obviously we want to stay in the game because of that. If nothing else, it's just such a big budgetary factor.
Commissioner Workman or Chair Workman up. A couple hopefully really easy questions to answer. Mia, you said we had 675 in our medical plan. Is that including dependents?
No, 675 employees. And to be clear, our medical plan also includes soil and water and CDA.
Okay. And so my next question is, what general percentage of our overall employee population is on our medical plan?
Oh, I haven't done this math in a minute, but over 90%.
Okay, and I don't need an actual, but
Yeah,
that's helpful. So very few people opt out,
yeah,
less than 10%. Okay.
yeah.
All right. That's it. Thank you, by the way. That was very educational, so I appreciate it.
Agreed.
Mia, just a couple of questions. Can you go back one slide? And in your wrap up, if I was following you,
Colin, can you push me back one second? Oh,
you had stated we are fully insured for 2027, correct?
yep,
And then you had mentioned we were going to look at the pool option for 2028 as we continue to go through this process.
yep.
And as we look through that process, when do we have to make a decision in 27 that we're going to make a change in 28? That
Yep.
has to be pretty early on because of the budget process, I would assume.
That's a really great question. So how the timeline works is we are gathering, so originally this was going to launch for 1/1 of 27. We've asked all participants, now that the date is 1/1 of 28, who's in and who's out, and we're making a work group with every member with someone from admin and someone from employee relations or HR. So you have finance and HR. That work group will finalize, the hope right now is that group will finalize and work on the JPAs and bylaws, get it wrapped up by the end of this summer, submit it to Department of Commerce, figure out that legislative component so that hopefully we have that figured out by early spring. If legislation is needed, that would go to legislation. We would market the pool for firm stop loss and administrative services fees in the summer of next year. And so timeline-wise, it would happen between June and August. And the reason for that timeline is when it comes to stop loss, we cannot get a firm proposal until late summer for the pool. And that's just how the stop loss market works. If we were to carve out stop loss, a firm stop loss carrier typically doesn't release a firm proposal until 90 days out. So we'll have a really good idea in early summer in terms of if we have a firm proposal from a bundled carrier or if we have a self-funded illustration, but it would happen in summer of next year. And the sign on the dotted line would happen likely in August at the very latest.
And part of that, Colleen, is what is your confidence level of it being passed by the next legislative session by, for example, May 15th?
Yep. And so kind of the legislative portion is out of my purview, but I have been working with Scott County and the legal person that they have brought on board for the pool, and we have not yet heard back. We're a bit in the middle right now. So we have a senator working on it to push it forward, but the senator is saying we need to get a no from Department of Commerce. And so what we're trying to do right now is work with legal counsel and say, how can we get a firm no from Department of Commerce? Because at this point, it has been based on your bylaws, this may not apply under the rules. And so because of that, we need, as you guys know, for legislation to carry it forward, you need something affirmatively saying we need something changed. And so that's the first step. So my goal as the consultant is let's do as much as we can. Let's firm that up. Let's work with legal counsel to get that firmed up in advance of next legislative session. We have to get that answer. That is the next hurdle to overcome. Yep.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, can I say one thing just based on timeline though? So similar to this year, when we were looking at that 1/127, Employee Relations Leadership and Gallagher worked together to get an early renewal from health partners, make sure we were still set up on all of our options and reviewing all of our options in tandem with each other. So we didn't get to a point now to say, oh, the pool's out 18 months, what are we going to do for 27? So we've tried to make sure we have plans in place, a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, so we're not delayed if a decision were to change or if a timeline were to adjust at all.
Okay, so then ultimately on this screen, that for me, I view this as a pro and con of the three choices. But the fully insured, I'd look at that, I'm assuming there's increased employee and union involvement in the fully insured plan, correct? Because we have to, when we're in those negotiations with the union contracts, if we don't have a viable insurance plan, the union's going to come back and say, okay, we need a 20% increase because we have to pay for the insurance benefit.
Yep, so Mr. Chair, Commissioner, so where we say the insurance committee increased employee and union involvement in self-funded, kind of compare that bullet point against carrier determined certain offerings under fully insured. So we still have an insurance committee today. The unions have representatives on each of it. But so the example I gave in the presentation, weight loss medication, right? I know there are other counties in the metro that have had lots of very emotionally charged conversations about whether or not to cover that because they get to make that decision on their self-funded plan. Whereas as a fully insured, Health Partners is saying, we don't cover weight loss medications, period. So that's where we say more involvement by the employee and unions, because there are going to be more conversations, more difficult decisions, more emotion-based decisions, to be frank, on what is financially viable for the county and what is best for employees, too.
And just an off topic, you had mentioned weight loss, but last night on 60 Minutes, they talked about freezing of the eggs for the younger female population, and I thought, and I was watching that with my wife, and I'm going, well, does Carver County cover that today?
Is that cryogenics?
So typically on a fully insured plan, like freezing of embryos or eggs usually isn't covered in the current arrangement that you're in. I will triple check in terms of fertility as far as it goes. Typically on a fully insured plan, it will allow for a diagnosis of infertility and things like that, but then there's a limit to X amount of dollars for prescription drugs to do programs like that, but not all plans cover it. So I'll verify what it currently covers. But those are the things exactly that she's talking about, that we're talking about a lot of different things that have emotions. They have people tied to them. That healthcare is personal, right? And so when we look at these, like to Mia's point, fully insured, the carrier dictates that. We don't have a say in that. When you're in a self-funded arrangement, you get the option. GLP-1s, are you going to cover them or not for weight loss? Fertility, are we going to add that or not add that to our plan? And so that's where the pool and consortium has that next layer. We're together going to make that decision. And so it's not coming necessarily from your employer, but coming from that pool board. And so that's where those decision-making kind of back to the voting kind of comes into play too. So, yeah.
Could we bring multiple members to the same pool? I'm asking from the perspective, I think somebody had asked in law enforcement if they were covered on pool plans. And I don't know if an insurable risk of somebody that carries a gun is different than the insurable risk of somebody that's pushing a plow or a healthcare worker, a social worker. Can we enter in multiple members to the same pool, or would we be considered one county, one unit versus 5 units? And then is there a delta between the insurable risk of law enforcement versus, I think that sometimes our HHS group is in the crossfire more than some people on certain days. Can you talk to the insurable risk of by the segment?
Yes. So from how we would look at it from a pool perspective is you're one member, even if you have multiple within
Yep.
your member. So for example, the soil and water, all of those, even though they're quasi entities on your plan, they're still going to be part of Carver County. They're not going to be a separate. And then in terms of insurable risk, I don't know that there's any specific statistics in terms of our police officers versus, Health and Human Services, any healthier or not healthy. So I don't have any data specific to that.
Just thought that might be a way around the voting thing in the interim, if you could bring in multiple members of the, you know what I
Trying to
mean?
think out of the box here.
Because we would be the only ones bringing law enforcement unless Chaska joined it, which they wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Well, Scott County has law
Scott
enforcement.
No, from
Shaka
our-
PD,
yes,
yeah, the
and
cities would have their
our
PD.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
In the entirety of Carver County, there's only 2 law enforcement. Yep. So if
Got
we
it.
brought Victoria and Carver in, blah, 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 blah. Right.
Right.
So you can dilute, our vote would be dilutive of theirs. They would get 1 if we had multiple, yes. Sorry.
I don't think the structure is currently set up that way.
Yes. Yep.
Well, we're trying to be creative.
All right, any other discussion?
So just briefly before we part ways, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind,
Before we
we
part
are discussing scale insurance pool at the joint Carver-Scott meeting next Tuesday. Colleen will be there, I'll be there, Carrie, Kristen, the whole
gang.
will all be there. And we're working with Scott County on that presentation, and we know where Scott County's at, but we want to make sure, at the end of the day, the commissioners are in agreement. So when we present on our status, we want to ensure that you agree that we are going to continue exploring the scale insurance pool for 1/1/28. And as Colleen said, we'll talk about the next steps there, the RFP, the JPAs, the bylaws. And then is this something our county board would be interested in having potentially on our legislative agenda for 2027?
I see no reason not to pursue,
If that's the roadblock.
and the legislative agenda,
Well,
Yep.
what you said today was, it's not a yes or a no, it's just kind of a from the Commerce, which delays us. I'm in favor of pressing forward as if we can do this. Now I have a little higher risk tolerance than some, right? And so, and I don't know if we can give direction. I'm saying, let's continue to pursue it this year, because I think there's benefits. And I know you're looking for everybody else to say, no, let's wait for a year. I want to press and pursue it because I don't think it's fair for Commerce to say, meh, and not give us a solution or a reason. We don't have that answer. And some people are interpreting their current answer as you can't do it. I'm interpreting it as sure as how we can do it. And if the math works out, let's do it this year because it means a lot, especially with 14.5% we saw on Tuesday for potential levy increase. Like I'm thinking every single day of how we get that down, and this is one of those material ways to get there. So the delta between 7% and 1 is another percent of levy. If we can get to pool at 1, I'm in favor of doing it this year.
Wait, a pool of 1. What do you mean?
I've seen numbers that said if we're part of a pool and it happens this year, we would be increased 1% year over year for healthcare. And I think at current, you say we have semi-locked in at 7% if we stay where we're at.
Yeah, I just want to note one thing on that. The pool feasibility said it could be as low as 1% year 1, not 1% year over year, but 1% in year 1.
Okay, thank you.
Potentially. And those are feasibility numbers too, so.
Yeah. So we don't get actual numbers until we take that pool out to
To market.
market and the carriers respond with proposals. Mr. Chair, Commissioner, in just response to the 1/1/2027 start date, at the most recent scale delivery meeting, the scale group did agree that 1/1/28 is the better launch goal. I think the majority of members, including the smaller cities, do have timeline concerns as we get closer to 1/1/27, and the large lift to get there for all of the members in that group.
So 1/1/27 isn't really an option. Is that what I'm hearing?
Be
Well,
with
the window's
rest of the
shrinking
pool.
fast.
We don't have-
Well, I mean, but
We don't
what
have
happened
parties.
at the last scale? Yeah.
I don't
So-
think flouting Department of Commerce laws, like Commissioner had a quote, meh. I don't know that our county attorney would suggest that that would be a realistic. So, but we're not going to
I
be,
don't-
if we go off on our own. for
I don't
just-
think, Mr. Chair, was maybe you could do it, maybe you couldn't. It was more of a, it's not legal. Doesn't follow our rules.
I mean, I don't think I should have to go 55 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Meh.
Do you?
Of course I do. I might press my luck at 57, but, so, legislatively speaking, I wouldn't want to roll those dice. So,
I do think we should, as long as we're looking at options here, the other county option, to me, is potentially more feasible than the option with scale. They may not like to hear that, but even if this legislation were approved, it might be a better option for us. So and we should talk about some of this in the closed session. If you think about the dynamics of voting, we've all been involved in joint JPAs, we're voting, it's an issue.
It
Right,
is.
we have 4 votes, they have 5, if that's the way it shakes out. Who are those 4 for us? How's the union represented? How's that all play out? And I would just, again, the recommendation is, let's proceed, but proceed with caution and watch these timeframes. I was really concerned that we were going into, I do this to Carrie all the time. She's sitting back there quietly, probably because of
Wondering, holding her breath at what you're going to
miracle,
say.
Right? How are you going to pull off this next miracle, which would be negotiating this into all the agreements that we have with our labor unions? I think a key element of that is education, right?
Yep.
So now we have a year, and let's talk to our group, not just the Labor Management Committee, which is as good as gold. They are so valuable to helping us here. So anyway, that's the backdrop, and I just want to make sure, and thank you, Mia, that we're on the same page.
Is there a
Talking
list
to
of
Scott.
the organizations that want to
Yeah.
join this thing? And
Yeah.
are they having similar meetings as us?
Great question. So currently, the list that are committed, that confirmed commitment for 1/1 of 27 and confirmed to continue are City of Jordan, City of Credit River, City of Elko New Market, Prior Lake, Spring Lake Park Watershed District, Scott County, and then we're having the conversation today about Carver County. Those that said they could not make, or they were not interested in moving forward for 1/1 of 27 was Dakota County, City of Belle Plaine, City of New Prague, and City of Savage. I'm missing.
So why are no Carver County cities involved?
Yep, I can speak to that. So this
We're
initiative,
going to start peeling this onion, and it's not going to end before noon. I know that.
the initiative and the original feasibility study was performed 2.5 years ago, and it started out of an initiative that came out of SCALE, which SCALE is a working group of Scott County and all of their cities. So the initiative came out of SCALE, feasibility was determined, it was determined to be feasible, and so the conversation has continued over the last 2.5, 3, 4 years. And as we continued that conversation, Scott County invited Carver County to the conversation, to the most recent feasibility study, as well as Dakota County. And I will say Carver County was made aware of this initiative, like we were brought in later than the others. But I would also say more recently, Dakota County was brought in. Dakota County was brought in at like the 11th hour of the last feasibility study, like, hey, we're doing this thing. Are you interested? And so they too were like, this is a really big concept. We need time to think about this. And we have our self-funded plan. Dakota County is much larger than even Scott or Carver. And so a lot of things in that realm too. So that's how it started.
Right, so are they, before we go to that meeting next week, they are moving ahead, whoever's with them or not with them?
Scott County at their work session 2 weeks ago, they took a vote in their work session, and the vote was to continue moving forward with this initiative.
And they're assuming Credit River, City of Credit, has the same vote as Scott.
With the intent that they said, yes, pursue forward. We're fully on board. We're fully supportive of this model with the caveat of we need weighted voting.
Weighted voting.
And 128.
Right.
And I would say, maybe up to interpretation. I wouldn't commit. I'm not sure if they committed to actually saying, yes, we're going to do it. I don't know how you can commit a future board to that. It might be a different board, right? So I'm hoping they're saying the same thing that we're asking for, which is stay in the game, keep assessing, review it, not only what this current group is, but maybe look at Dakota, Scott, and Carver. Let's look at that too.
Yeah, and to provide a little bit of color, just because I was at that work session, admin really pushed on the commissioners at the Scott County board session to say, from their perspective, they've been part of this feasibility study now twice. So twice within a 3-year span, and both times the results were fairly similar. Some savings in year one, it wasn't ginormous, right? And really they pushed their board to say, we've been involved in this conversation. We've seen the feasibility. The last step is to get a firm quote, but we know that the actuarial valuations are sound and solid. We're just firming up that last piece. Are you committed to this function of operation in terms of health insurance? So to your point, it wasn't we're signing on the dotted line, but it was a very firm, are you committed to this type of philosophy to continue to pour funds into exploring, funds and county resources, time for these meetings to continue to happen is kind of where they directed their commissioners to, so.
Is there a path for Scott and Carver to create a pool and then wait? Because if the sticking point is voting, and then tack on the other ones once the law gets clarified or changed? And then if you did that, you'd overcome the barrier of, we have roughly the same amount. They probably have more belly buttons than we do because they're larger. But it's not.
Not materially.
I think they had like 795 participate
Yeah.
employees
Yeah,
in their
so
feasibility study.
for voting, I think they'd be amicable if we were equal voting rights to get this thing off the ground and then adjust it later if you bring in cities later. And to Tom's point, if cities of Carver wanted to join on board, then you could have the bolt down to say, what does it mean? And it likely means either you vote your belly buttons or you don't get a vote at all. You tack onto the benefits of the law.
But then they'd have to look their cities who they probably want to help in the face and say, sorry, you're out. We're going with Carver.
When it started with the cities, yeah.
Right.
Right, so then
That's why
they're
it's
turning their
scaled.
back on their cities.
Right.
I mean, I do think governance matters, and you never want to get into a situation where you don't have the weighted voting and that piece of it. So I think we should keep any and all options open.
And the
continue to pursue
legislative too?
everything. And
Legislative.
legislative as well.
Okay, JP?
As we go forward and we're looking at this meeting next week, this joint meeting, what's the whole premise of the presentation? Are you going to go through all of this stuff today to share with Scott County just because of the time-wise? Because we got a couple other meetings before that meeting.
Yeah,
So
so,
just let me finish. And ultimately, is Scott County going to be in the room and said, hey, we're doing this, Carver County, you either get on board or don't? Is that type of message going to come across to us and say, at the end of the day, Carver County, are you on board or aren't you? Is that part of the presentation?
so as of current, the presentation will not get into this deep dive into education like it did today. Scott County has heard the information you've heard for educational side of things as well. We will go over kind of a brief history timeline, how we got to where we are today. A little bit of a reminder on funding arrangements. And then there is going to be a slide that Scott County presents regarding their current status, which as of today is that their board has directed staff to take the necessary actions to join the pool 1/1/28. And then there'll be a similar Carver County slide that shows our current status, which will more than likely read something similar to, we are continuing to explore the scale pool option, but I think at the end of the day, both entities are interested for 1/1/28, and both entities are needing the weighted voting and the proper governance. I think that'll be the bulk of the conversation, is the voting and the governance of the pool. Understanding there's multiple items on the agenda that day that we need to get through, and we can't spend 3 hours on insurance, as much as I would love to. And I know all of you
I'm
would.
sure you would.
And Mia, when you make the comment that Scott County is interested by 1/28, that doesn't mean they're committed to have it done by 1/28. Because I personally would be interested in going there, but by no means would I want to commit that we're going to do it by 1/28. Because first of all, the legislative side, we don't know. And if we're going to spend all that time and effort, we can't get a legislative priority passed until 29. This is a moot point until 2030, because if they do it in May of 29, no one's going to jump on board until January of 30. So that's my caution, is all the energy and all the effort. And that one huge piece of having a senator or having a House rep co-author a bill that comes down to the 12-hour negotiations and they throw it off the board and here we sit. Because we've seen that time and time again with different topics.
Yep, we have.
Tom, you know the legislator better than anybody in this room. Can you?
I'm holding an emotional pickle and a potato right now. So speak gently.
But there's administrative.
I always got to show Commissioner Lynch, he gets a smile.
There's administrative stalls, right, that aren't law, right, Tom, for clarification on stuff like this?
The state statute books are this wide and the administrative law is double that. I used to own copies. It's doubled. So yeah.
So what is I think JP brings up, what is the path to get this fixed? Or?
No, that's why I went right to the crux, which was, why are they doing that? And I don't think anybody really knows. And if it's an old statute, you may never find out. But all the statutes are dated as to when they happen. You might be able to figure out from there. But I think we might have figured out the deal that, they don't want the big guy picking on the little guy somehow. And that's why I asked who's on the list. And there's some little guys on the list. And some are all in and Belle Plains not. And maybe. So it doesn't seem to me that it should be that difficult to fix that. Maybe sit down with the Commerce Department people. What's the problem? And ascertain why they can't move ahead on that, because it sure does seem like the outcome is good for Carver County. But I think,
Mr. Chair, I have talked to my colleague Leslie Vermillion about, could we get some legal analysis on this? Because it has been sort of, there's surprises along the way. It's like, you went to the Capitol, we didn't even talk about that,
Yeah.
right, last minute. And it seems like a bad strategy, if nothing else, that we're not talking about that, right? So I'll keep pressing for that. I think we should get a deeper dive to get a better assessment of the chances. Of course, good luck. But it does seem it seems to make sense, right? But
That doesn't mean anything with the legislators.
good luck interpreting that. But I'll keep pushing for that. And I know, thanks to Gallagher, they've stepped up to the plate more, as this has progressed quickly. And the same broker, right? You represent both sides.
I do.
So
That's helpful.
That's really helpful.
Dakota too, or?
I do not represent Dakota, but we've had several conversations, actually, Gallagher and their actuaries that they work with too. So
Do you represent Wright County?
I do not represent Wright County.
But I would ask, I'd like to see that slide before it gets in front of the group, because that's very important language. You're not
Right.
saying we're committing, right? But we want to
Correct.
stay in the game, in effect.
Right.
And I'm still not clear where, it seems like Scott's committing, but yet you technically can't commit a future board to do anything, right?
Well, that's true.
So, but I get it. I get, they want to, the staff want to know, they spend a lot of time on this. And they do want to know. Because I have heard some commissioners are saying, no, I'm a hard no, I'm out voting against it.
I think it went 4-1, right? One said absolutely not. The 4 others said yes, keep going.
Yeah, if you
Hands
can.
in the air to keep going. Is that right? Scott? Yep.
Yeah.
How many hands?
1.
There's only one hand to keep
4
on?
4 at 1 say no.
Okay.
One that's saying no is resigning.
Commissioner Lynch, I don't think we heard from you.
If you want to go back one slide, of the 3 choices of the self-funded, it's the risk we reward. Self-funded, there's additional risk. You mentioned we have, out of 5 years, you have 3 good and 2 bad, so you got the risk. There's additional staff, and you go with the pool. The weighted, it would have to have the weighted voting, because we have the decision-making ability, also additional staff. Right now, I look at it from the employee standpoint, is that we have excellent health care. I would like to have the least amount of disruption. I want to look at it from that aspect too, but I would absolutely continue to explore, but I'm not in favor of saying, continue to explore, but let's see where it takes us.
So we're 4-1 maybe. Right? We have 4-1.
Well, and I think the big thing is, how much is it going to save us? I mean, the loss of decision-making autonomy may, how much of that versus how much is it going to save us? We really need the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to really have those numbers until we really know who the pool is. And we're not going to have a pool until we know. There's just a lot of steps that are going along here. Yeah.
And one other thing too is we should need to look to see if we can, if it's really a great deal, if we can include our cities, if they're interested.
Right. Right.
Right. Notably absent.
Right.
All right, but, so continue and legislative. So you are not a continue?
Me? No, I'm continuing.
He's a
Okay,
continue.
for 5
Continue.
continues?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, there you go. It's clear as mud
Well, to be
on a
to be clear though, Mr. Chair, I don't plan on inviting our cities.
Oh, until we
I'd
have
like
a
to talk to Scott about that. I mean, that really would raise the complexity bar on an already complex topic. I think a better strategy would be see if it works with the current players, and then
Right.
if it works, bring others in as we progress forward. I think that
Exactly.
as you watch this thing unfold, Scott is spending a lot of time on this thing. I'd hate to do that with some sort of false hopes with our cities. Well, I'm sort of inviting ourselves to the party. Right? It's really, really, they are driving it. So I wouldn't get too far ahead, although I have talked to the city administrators about the possibilities of the future, not necessarily 28 or 27, but maybe beyond that.
Gallagher does Chaska, but is that not you?
Me personally, no.
It's Gallagher.
I believe so. I believe my colleague does. I'd have to look.
Yeah.
And excellent presentation too.
Yeah, great work.
Thank you.
I think she went to St. Cloud State, didn't
I did go to
See,
St. Cloud.
Tommy?
All right, look at us.
all the smart people in the room, raise your hand.
You learned that in the red carpet?
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I was a graduate student, so I didn't go to the red carpet.
Why don't we adjourn? We're going to adjourn this work session and.
Oh, yeah, you got a meeting to get to.
Oh, yeah, you do. Okay.
Go.